Anyway, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Creator Series Formula One. Welcome to Season 7, Round 5, and welcome to the Austrian Grand Prix. My name is Jamie Perry, and I am joined in the virtual commentary box by the one and only, the very talented Hayden Gillis. Hayden, how are you on this fantastic evening with, well, I can only assume, rest assured, some fantastic racing ready to be put on display?
I am doing very well because at last minute, the man, the myth, the legend, Jamie Perry has jumped in to join me in the commentary box after Daniel Gilligan has let us down. I hope Daniel is all well, but, his loss is my gain because I am in the box with Jamie, who, of course, covers the Formula 2 action, jumping onto the F1 action for this week. I'm excited. We've got a sprint race weekend. It's a reverse grid first race that we're going to jump straight into. Then we're going to get a full qualifying session and then, of course, a full 100% race. So we are in for an evening that is going to be full of action, and I'm very much stoked for it.
Obviously, as you mentioned, the reverse grid and almost very similar weekend system to what you see in Formula 2. We start with the sprint race. Then we get into qualifying, full qualifying, not the same as just doing a one-shot qualifying that you would do in F2 before getting into that 100% race. So it is similar to F2, but longer sessions and just a little bit more competitiveness in terms of the drivers and maybe some slightly faster cars for Formula 1 cars at our disposal here tonight. But if we were to look at our reverse grid, on pole position, it would be that guy Vince. On stop, Rob would then be in P2. Skyzy would be in P3, Safso in P4, Persia in P5, Toom in P6, Infratic in P7, F1 Scott in P8, Matty D13 would be in P9, Tom97 in P10, don't know how to pronounce the name, I'm probably gonna botch this, I'm gonna try my best, Nogueira, I think we're gonna hope is
Close. Nogueira, I think we call him. We go in Nogueira.
Okay, Nogueira. Okay, we got close. We'll take that. P11, I believe. GB68, P12. Timit Mardik, P13. Alex Gillen, P14. David Castilla in P15. Punju in P16. Adam Sanderson in P17. Be Good in P18. And Kylon in P19 with, I believe, is Patterson, who's actually joining us, who will start dead last in P20, who will be replacing the driver of Mr. Dale J.E., your Season 6 Formula 2 champion.
Yeah, some great drivers in the lineups today. Of course, a few of them missing. Razin Shai, former world champion, is at the Austrian Grand Prix, so will not be available to race. Unfortunately, Dale had to drop out last minute. Hope everything is all good with him. And Patterson is stepping in. We've got quite a few drivers who are on the F2 grid, or, well, a couple. We've got Adam Sanderson, and we've got, of course, Patterson as well. And then we've got Punju, who's on the F2 grid last time. What are our expectations going in between these guys? Because in the past, I'd say Adam Sanderson coming in, he's not really had a good reputation in the Formula 1 series. A lot of incidents, a lot of crashes, and the pace was never really there. But in all fairness, this year's game on F1 24, he's actually been performing very well in F2. He's been up at the front, he's been consistent, he's in the fight for second in that championship. Are we expecting things to be backed up here? Because I'm looking out for Adam as one to watch maybe for this weekend.
You know what, there's a statistic I love to go to, and it's from a performance he did in the first round of racing in Formula 2 at Monaco. I believe it was for the sprint race. He started quite low down. He made 13 positions up. He had a penalty to his name, but he also took fastest lap. Even with that penalty to his name and the 13 positions that he gained, plus that fastest lap, he took the win in that sprint race in Monaco. And I think as the opening round, from what we saw in previous previous seasons, and really seeing his performance, I wouldn't call it lackluster, but consistently midfield. Compared to what we're seeing this season, he's really changed the game for himself and really started to improve upon his performance. And I think maybe if we go into a Formula 1, he can maybe replicate that in a lot of ways and show what he can do as a much more competitive driver. Maybe he's going to replicate what we've seen in Formula 1 in the past, but to be honest, we don't know. We know his pace in Formula 1, in Formula 2, his pace in Formula 1 is still a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, certainly is. Hasn't performed, I don't think, yet this season for Adam Sanderson. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. here in Austria. Has got a sprint race, and then, of course, a main race to find out. As for Punju, I think probably a driver, if the other drivers on the grid are looking for a safety car in today's race, then Punju's going to be the man who's potentially going to bring it out. Brought one out last week in the Spanish Grand Prix, and potentially here again today. But he'll be looking to bounce back, of course, and putting a stronger performance for the Williams team. Up at the front then, Elray Guri, Alex Gillen, and Tom97 have got to be our main protagonists for this season. Elray Guri's been leading the way, Alex Gillen is hot on his heels, and Tom97 had a great chance to try and fight back in a championship. However, an error under the safety car cost him that race win. Out of those three, is it going to be easy to call for today, or is it just going to be so close between those three drivers?
I think the championship kind of says it's going to be close. I actually have a statistic for Tom97 as well. He's shown a lot of pace in qualifying, like a significant amount, especially quite recently. I mean, in places like Spain and in Canada, he actually took pole position. And I think if he can try and replicate that again in Austria and here at the Red Bull Ring, just really try and push to try and be as competitive as possible, have the pace on his side, we could actually see something maybe replicating itself all over again, and that is another pole position in his favor. Obviously, as you mentioned, he has won a race at Canada and also at Qatar, but that was for the sprint race at Qatar. It was actually Alex Gillen who won the feature race, but I think that also proves the point on how close the championship is. It isn't just a one-way battle with a single driver like we may have seen with a certain F2 driver in an F2 championship. It's really close. We had Tiamat Marduk who picked up the win last weekend at Spain, and obviously the usual guys still fighting quite close in the point playing positions, also in the podium as well. So I don't know, it's going to be close. I think it's also still just a little bit unpredictable. We have the usual names who are going to be up there, but who will take pole, who will take the win, who will get the podium positions is still slightly unknown between who would be in order of that.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough to call between those guys. But we're going to get into a sprint race first of all, and that is, of course, going to tailor more towards those drivers who have been struggling so far this season. That guy Vincent starting on pole, turned up to his first race last time out at Spain. Didn't really go the way that he wanted, so this is a weekend he will look to bounce back and to get, of course, it started with a race win in the sprint is going to be what he's looking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's important to bounce back from certain mistakes that may occur, and it's important to try and keep your head down and just be as competitive as possible, because, you know, certain things like that can affect you and mentally just put you out of the zone. So if you can do so, then it can really work in his favor and potentially see better days to come in his favor. But that can happen right now as we are really starting to approach towards the beginning of the sprint race, which I don't believe is a full entire distance for a sprint race. It may be 50% of that distance, but it should be an exciting one ahead of us.
Yeah, going to be very, very exciting. We've got all the cars lined up on the grid. They're just going to be going through their setups at this time of the race, just getting themselves prepared and ready, making sure they are, of course, set for what awaits us. Cannot change your setup between sprint, qualifying, and race. Whatever setup you decide with right now dictates what you're going to be running across the whole weekend. So it's very important that the drivers get this part right, and there's no mistakes, of course, with any of the setups. But it's going to be all exciting down towards those first corners. There's going to be a lot of drivers trying to get those results that have kind of eluded them so far this season, but also for the drivers at the back of the field, the ones who are, you know, statistically and on paper, the fastest drivers on our grid are going to be looking to try and cut their way through the field as quickly as they possibly can. Elray Guri is going to be huge for him and Alex Gillen, who is the best at this race for getting through the field, because of course it could come down to the championship. They're all very close at the moment, and either one of them is going to be trying to gain points on the other right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, it's neck and neck. It's so close in the championship at the moment. Right now, Alex Gillen sitting on 76 points. Elray Guri, 83 points. That is it in terms of the deficit. So especially in the fact that we have a break week next week, coming into Austria, it's about maximizing the points to the best of your ability, because it's your final opportunity for the next 2 weeks before you finally go racing once again. So you really want to try and set down your mark, and it's time to shut up and show up and really see what you can do when it comes to the racing here in Formula One. So yeah, it's close margins in the championship. It's going to be interesting who can beat the other here today, and obviously we can't count out Tia Marduk's only 6 points off Alex Gillen in the championship right now, and GB and P4 by a significant margin lower than that, so right now it is a bit more of a top 3 tussle.
Race winner last time out, Tia Marduk. He'll be looking to try and go back-to-back to put himself up at the front. We are moments away from the sprint race at the moment, but before we get into that, let us know in the comments who you think is going to win. Let's get into it. Over to you.
5 red lights. And the lights go out. It's pedal to metal here in the sprint race in Formula 1 Round 5, Season 7 here in Austria. It's a good getaway by Dakai Vince. Looks like Unstop Rob just backing out of it as he looks to maybe go down the inside. Skyzy in P3, the kick just looking to potentially send it on the inside line. Can't seem to get it done, but now gets the rotation from that exit, and now using the top speed that he's been able to maximize going into turn 3, gets the rotation. Can the green and black car maximize it? No. Unstop Rob using the outside line out of the exit of turn 3 to once again maximize the top 3 and the top speed in his favor to get him back up into P2. As we go a little bit further down, looks like Persia in P4, the Alpha Tauri, V-Carb, looking to now fall down to P5 as Tuman moves up to P4. Tom, apologies, as he now continues to try and bring himself closer to the rear diffuser of Kick F1 team. Alex Gillen goes up to P14, fighting from right near the back of the field, obviously in P1 of the championship, P2, so would now find himself needing to bring himself just a little bit closer to some of the other drivers and potentially score some solid points on the board. Obviously, it's only from P8 and above that points will be scored towards your name, so it's just a little bit tighter to try and get those points that are necessary towards your championship fight. F1 Scott in P7 also just gaining a little bit of time, backing out, needing to defend against Tiamat Marduk, but doesn't need to stress too much as we immediately go into a DRS train on lap 2, which is the new activation point, no longer on the third lap of racing. It now switched to the second lap. Looks like Noguera going up to P10. Bit of contact made between the Aston Martin of GB68 in P11, and looks like another position gain for the Aston Martin, who goes up to P11, and Mercedes singing it down the inside. Noguera in P13, just looking to try and hang around there, but Alex Gillen on the outside line gets full maximization of it, and up to P12 he goes as racing well and truly underway here in the Red Bull.
Great start from that guy Vince to move into the lead of this race, but also I'm watching this driver right here, the Alpine of Tom. He's had a fantastic season in terms of race pace. The luck has not gone his way. This is a great opportunity for him to get a race win under his belt. P3 at the moment in this race and hunting down Unstop Rob, who is also looking all over the back of the Red Bull driver of that guy Vince. Let's see what these drivers can do as they head now down in towards the third corner. Tom on the back of Unstop Rob, who's going for the overtake down in towards turn 3. Tom thinks better of it, but Unstop Rob moves into the lead of this sprint race. Great move from Unstop Rob to take the lead.
DRS now active, and that also allows Tom to potentially come back out of the Red Bull, but Dakai Vince also having it, almost acting as a aerodynamic block in a lot of ways, just causing more dirty air for the Alpine behind. No further advantage will be in his favor. Safso just need to back out of it a little bit. Alpine and P7 will stay there, and Tom does go around the outside on the Red Bull, not wasting any more time. Can he make the move stick? Has the traction and the grip, gets the throttle down and up to P2. Goes the Alpine driver. What a fantastic move through turn 7. Simply something you don't normally see here in Austria. Really putting it all on the line here in the sprint race and needing to maximize to the best of his ability. Once again, the DRS train just limiting an opportunity going into turn 1. But as we go a little further down, Matty T13 with the 105.322 fastest lap for the Haas driver. And right now just monitoring what El Ray Guri is doing. Obviously our current championship leader, DRS active, looking on the inside line, slight contact with a Ferrari, but no problems as he breaks nice and late, but goes 3 wide as his teammate butts in. GB68 up to P9. He's going to fight away as they nearly went 3 abreast through the exit of the corner. One of the Aston Martins has to back out of it, and so GB68 gets the opportunity, but Alex Gillen sending it down the inside, gets the rotation necessary, gets the throttle down, up to P9. Now goes the American constructor, Elray Guri, up to P10 as he fights off Infratic, and it is an all-out fight here in the midfield at the moment as the Aston Martin of GB68 just getting a nick ahead at the moment.
Looks like GB68 has a little bit of front left wing damage. It was an audacious move there from Alex Gillen to go for the overtake to try and make it 3 wide. We've seen it from Alex Gillin in multiple races so far this season, and once again, might just be a little bit silly from Alex Gillin to go for an overtake like that. He got the maneuver done, but was it a little bit too aggressive? I think so. But here comes Tom now to take the lead of this sprint race in Austria on the inside, down into the 3rd corner. Unstopped Rob trying to hold it on the outside. You'll get better traction out of there, but Tom will have the DRS. Heading now down into turn 4. Rob defends the inside line. Tom looks to the outside, swoops round, little bit of rear rotation, but he managed to collect the car. Unstopped Rob has a snap, and it's Tom who takes the lead.
And that guy Vince is still not too far away. 2.5 tenths now becomes 3.5 tenths. Unstopped Rob will be absolutely disappointed with that one, looking for any other opportunity to potentially come back at Tom in the Alpine, but it looks like he's just pulling away just a little bit as they enter into the 3rd and final sector and into the final couple of corners. Alex Gillin up to P8, making a move against F1 Scott in P9, and right now still looks like Unstopped Rob may now have an opportunity going into turn 1, but will he wait for the DRS detection zone going into the 1st corner? Yes, he does exactly that. So now as we go down the back straight and through into the kink of turn 2, DRS is active and he's not wasting a single second. Unstopped Rob at the same corner. That was an overtake for Tom. It's now an overtake for Unstopped Rob, but Tom got the better exit. DRS again. Slam down the loud pedal and back up to P1 goes the Alpine driver. That guy Vince just starting to trail behind as Persia on the outside line. It's almost a 4-way battle. Tia McMartin goes up to P5, just getting the better rotation and exit compared to Skyzy. And the McLaren is also trying to bring himself closer to the V-car for Persia. And that guy Vince continuing to fight away. There is a yellow flag, however. Looks to be in the 2nd sector. Looks like it's gone away though. McLaren now on the inside line. Tia McMartin trying to send it down. Contact made and a spin immediately for the British constructor. McLaren picks up debris also. Falls down to P16 and it's fallen away with him immediately.
That went from an incredible start to the race for Tiamat Marduk to it all falling away. Is up at the front. They're switching positions once again. This time Unstopped Rob on Tom. Tom tucks in, and I don't think these two are worried about going wheel to wheel too hard at the moment because they're working to try and break away from the rest of this pack right here that are squabbling with each other as M-Sky-Z corking the bottle, dropping through the field, and Alex Gillin has shot up into 3rd position onto the podium, fighting with Perya at the moment, tries it around the outside. Perya tries to keep it on the inside, unable to do so there, and has to concede the position. But they are all now going to be trying to hunt down the two at the top, Tom and Unstopped Rob, who are trying to break away and have that 2.5 second lead over the rest of them. And further down the field, Infratic and F1 Scott going wheel to wheel between those two drivers seem to have sorted themselves out at the moment. But our championship leader, El Rey Guri, seems to be struggling, unable to break past Nagera and get past the rest of this train as F1 Scott picks up 3 seconds of time penalties.
It's the Qatar sprint all over again. It is absolutely chaotic. The midfield is fighting like a herd of sheep at the moment. Skyzy in P7 right on the rear end of Savzo, and it just seems to be still neck and neck between every single one of these drivers. An opportunity could be open for any of them. Looks like V-Carb's going to send it down the inside. Tom 97 goes up to P7 and P6. Slight contact to the Alpine of Savso. No damage, however, and that is a clean move up into P6 as Tom falls down to P2. Unstopped Rob continuing the battle for the lead of the race here in the sprint race, here in round 5, season 7 at the Austrian GP. On the inside line, back down to P7 is Savso in the Alpine, still trying to defend his position against Skyzy in the kick F1 team Sauber, and it just looks like he's finally got position gained, but I'm sure Sauber's going to be right back on him, and Mercedes and Aston Martin still right behind in what has been almost a 5, 6, 7 man battle all the way to the checkered flag here on lap 9 of 12. 3 laps remaining as the racing has never been so tight and so competitive since the start of the season.
GB looks to have picked up more front wing damage, this time on the right side of his front wing. I noticed he was very close to the back of his teammate in that battle there, and is now going to get overtaken by Infratic down in towards turn 3. But I noticed he was very close with his teammate in that situation, but unfortunately for him, I think he just got a little bit too caught up with his teammate once again and has broken his front wing. This sprint race is going to fall away from GB68. Up at the front, Alex Gillen being overtaken by Purya. Purya moves up back onto the podium, but gets taken out by Alex Gillen, drives into the back of him. I'm not too sure actually whether that was Gillen driving into the back of him. Might have been a loss of rear end. There's another Alpine off in the background. And that was Zafso who's dropping down the field. Lost a handful of positions. I think he either just lost the rear end or a little bit of contact as El Rey Guri is trying to find his way through the field.
It is absolutely carnage. I have the biggest smile on my face. This is incredible racing. Aston Martin sending it down the inside. A bit of the squeeze off the circuit. For Skies, the El Rey Guri gets up to P7. How the stewards will decide that also with Alex Gillen's move. Slight contact to the rear diffuser, just taking him out of a bit more stability through the exit of turn 4. Bit of a slide there for El Rey Guri on the exit of turn 1. But have a look at Persia. Really starting to size up a move. Same for Tom 97, who now goes up to P3. No problems on overtaking. Doesn't need to brake late. Just uses the outside line. Persia up to P5 against that guy. Vincent P6. El Rey Guri is still right there as well. DRS, and this could be another move here in the midfield pack. It is really sprint racing like they are sprinting like no tomorrow. Aston Martin outside line gets the throttle down, and El Rey Guri is going like a Boeing up to P6 with no problems on his side. Aston Martin another position up. Haas down to P4 as Tom 97 got the advantage out of the exit of turn 3, and Unstopped Rob still right on the rear end of Tom. This is going to be a battle all the way to the checkered flag for P1.
El Rey Guri needs to get a move on here because two of his championship rivals, Alex Gillen and even Tom 97, are ahead. We know that Tom 97 has the pace to be up there in that championship fight over the course of this very long season. So El Rey Guri needs to either get past them or get as close to them so he only loses out a couple of positions, and he's just done that right there, overtaking Purya into P5 as it looks like another driver has dropped through the field. That's Zafso, who has unfortunately had a mistake into the last corner, and he has dropped down the field as Alex Gillen overtakes Tom at 97 and moves back up into third place. But behind them, El Rey Guri, with 1 lap to go, will look to try and catch up to both of these, but he's got to go defensive because Purya is on the inside. But he's going to lose the rear end in towards the apex at that corner, and El Rey Guri is going to be safe. Now it's up to him to try and catch up to Tom 97 and Alex Gillen and try and get in that fight for the podium.
As the saying goes, no risk, no reward, and it is full confidence between P1 and P2 of Unstopped Rob and Tom, and they will have a single lap to go. This currently on the penultimate lap of racing here in the sprint race, but they will be fighting all the way to the checkered flag. As I mentioned before, the podium just starting to separate a little bit more. Tom 97 now 6, now 7 tenths behind. Doesn't help that he's just picked up a 3-second time penalty for track limit, and so now the fight really starts to focus on the top 2 here. Unstopped Rob with DRS. He has a perfect amount of slipstream and tow, uses the draft and uses the aerodynamic advancements to go into turn 3 ahead of the Alpine. Tom will have DRS on the exit, however. Can he get the throttle down? Uses the loud pedal, gets a little bit too much wheel spin, but still right there with DRS. Is he going to go for a big lunge? No, he goes to the outside line. Mercedes defends the inside. A potential squeeze could be in order. Tom still in P2. Unstopped Rob defending with all his might. Still just trying to defend. And it looks like Alpine really starting to push the Mercedes all the way to the limit. Punju with the fastest lap of a 104.978. But the fastest lap is not where the action is held. It's between these two. Unstopped Rob doing the defending that was necessary. A bit too much of a slide from the Alpine. And it is the Mercedes who will come across the checkered flag to win the sprint race here in Austria. What a fantastic start to the weekend. F1 turn up to the max because what a show of racing on display.
Great battle up at the front between Tom and Unstopped Rob. Incredible scenes between those two drivers. And Unstopped Rob able to hold on to it right at the end of the race. I thought Tom might have been able to come back at him because I saw the battery flashing going into turn 3 and coming out of turn 3 by Unstopped Rob, but he was just managing his battery so well to try and hold on to that position, and he worked it in his favor. Unstopped Rob is our race winner in the sprint, and as I said, for those drivers who have been struggling so far this season, Unstopped Rob, not necessarily with pace, but has been having issues with his equipment, and that's what's cost him races so far this season, and even be able to show up to races. So to now come back get that sprint race win under his belt, he'll be very happy with that. For Tom as well, you know, he was only on, I think, 3 points coming into the race last time out in Spain, got on the podium, now to be on the podium again in the sprint, P2, 7 points to his name. But up at the front, our title protagonists, Alex Gillen and Elray Guri, third and fourth. Only 1 place separating them and only 1 point separating those two as well. And look, it rained right at the end of the race. Look, there's rain coming down now. So the drivers just about avoided a little bit of rain, which would have certainly shook things up in that race. But it is Unstopped Rob who is our sprint race winner for today.
And points mean everything in a sprint race. I mean, it's so slim. Like I said, from P8 to P1, that is where the points are all separated towards. We had Elray Guri finish in P4. We had Alex Gillen finish in P3. That's 6 points towards Alex Gillen's race. That's only 5 points towards El Guri. And you may think, well, that's only 1 point of a deficit. 1 point can still be a factor between a championship win and a championship loss. It really is coming down to the wire at the moment. I mean, those points at the moment right now, live championship updates, has already started to slim itself down. So Alex Gillen still starting to apply that pressure to Elray Guri. Obviously, P2 against P1. It really is the title contenders going neck and neck. Unfortunately, Tiamat Marduk, who actually had a really great start and a fantastic amount of positions, unfortunately had a spin just around, I believe it was around lap 5 or 6, and unfortunately just lost all those positions, fell down to around P16, P17, and I also believe he picked up a bit of debris to his front wing, and it cost him plenty of positions and, well, put him out of any contention for any points that point around. But yeah, what a fantastic win for Unstopped Rob. As you mentioned, he had a few problems with his equipment, so it's good to see that he's got it all under control, and he's been able to show that in a fantastic showcase of pace and competitiveness by picking up that win. Fantastic defense against Tom in the Alpine. He really tried pushing him. You could see nudging the rear diffuser, trying to nudge him ever so closely, but he couldn't seem to get the move done. Stuck in stone. He slid going into the second last corner, and that gave the perfect opportunity for the win to go right to him.
Yeah, great stuff there from Unstopped Rob. Coming back to the team at Marduk one, I thought he had a great chance to really get in the fight for the race win, because he was on the softer tires and was just really focusing on trying to get to the front. And there's two different ways you can play it when it comes to these sprint races. You can either go softs, go really aggressive, and you'll deal with the tyre wear later. Okay, I'm going to go try and get myself to the front, and then whatever happens, if I have a few issues with tyres, I'll deal with that later and I'll try and defend. Or you go more conservative and you allow those drivers who are, you know, on those softer tyres just get past you, ruffle the feathers up at the front, and then you benefit from the tyres later on. And it all depends on the positioning on the grid as well. If you're up at the front, you might have that luxury to start on those medium tyres because you're already there. If you're further down in the back, you can also play the long game too. It's sort of more that middle area that comes a little bit more confusing, because from my own experience, you know, usually being around the mid-pack on these grids, I had all the fast guys ahead of me, and I had drivers who were not really that much slower in front of me, so it was difficult to get past those, but I was going to get swallowed up by the drivers behind. So the best strategy for me was either I go for softs, I go aggressive, I try and attack, I get past drivers, and I move up, and it worked well on occasions. Or the other way is to go, okay, I'm going to go mediums, I'm going to let all these guys who are faster than me ahead past me, they can all overtake me now, and then I will just follow them as they work their way through the other drivers, and if any mistakes, I pick off those pieces. So it's interesting what different strategies drivers play out, and I think Tiamat Marduk was on for a decent run in that race, and then unfortunately that contact that we just literally caught to on the broadcast all came undone. That guy Vince, though, gets another point to his name. He started on the front row, but was down, I think in P8, I think he finished just inside the points. But somebody, like, I've been talking a lot, and I don't mean to talk about him in a negative way because I dislike him or anything like that. I'm confused about what is happening with MSkyZ. He was so strong in F1 23. He was up at the front, fighting for the championship, arguably, when maybe it was between him and Tom 97, but if Tom 97 wasn't racing, it certainly was MSkyZ, the quickest qualifying driver on the grid, hands down. Nobody could argue against that. And now on F1 24, the pace has been falling off slightly. And, you know, to start at the front, have an opportunity to get your season back on track, maybe try and get a podium, a race win, and finishing outside the points in the sprint once again, it just seems to show MSkyZ struggles continuing.
I don't know. I think you're really trying to offend him there. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, I think it's really difficult because the handling has changed quite significantly in between F1 23 and F1 24. I think quite simply in F1 23 you had a lot more of a comfortable feeling. You know, the cars were super stable. There was no problems in terms of, you know, needing to control the rear when you kick through on the exit of a corner. It was all super controlled. I mean, a new player could join, and even if they need to use ABS and traction, it was much easier to control the cars. You come to F1 24 and, you know, let's say you've developed your skill a little bit more, you no longer need traction control, you no longer need ABS, you're more independent as a driver. You go to drive some of these cars, and the way they drive is so different compared to F1 23 that there's this big learning curve for all these drivers. And maybe that's why Skyzy's just struggling a little bit. He's just not understood the cars completely yet. I think I interviewed you last night, and you said something about just having that opportunity to learn the cars a little bit more. You obviously still learning the Formula 2 cars, but you're getting a better understanding for them. But when you first started on the game, you struggled to understand how they drove and how you could be competitive, where you could find time. And so I think Skyzy just needs that opportunity to try and, you know, find that time, find where you can maybe gain time where he's losing out, and gain that pace that we saw in F1 23.
Yeah, with these new cars, you have a lot more grip on the front end as well. So you can really chuck the car into the corner, but you're also fighting the wheel quite a bit because you could over-rotate, but you can catch it quite nicely. So it's all about getting those precise moments. Locking up is a lot easier to do on this year's game. So, and if you have too many lockups, you're going to really put a lot of wear on those tyres. The tyres build up in terms of temperature on different sides. So you could have Qatar, for example, at the Mystery Grand Prix. That front left was building up in temperature, and that was really punishing the load and the tyre wear through the tyres. So there is a lot to learn about this game, and I know Skyzy, we spoke to him last week, that he is just trying to work on it week on week and try and find what is not quite there at the moment. But, you know, if he wants any chance of fighting for a championship this season, he needs to get it under control, because he lost out at the final corner last time out in France, and I know that he wants it. I know that he's not desperate for it, but there's that fight within him to be the champion of the Creator Series. He puts in a lot of effort behind the scenes, and for him, I just hope that he can find out what is going wrong for him, find that fix, and hopefully it's just a very quick fix. You know, it could be something very simple as, you know, your brake saturation, or just tweaking that slightly, and all of a sudden, wow, I've found, you know, 5 tenths of lap time, and then that's putting him up at the front. So hopefully for him, he can find whatever the issues are that he's having with this year's game and these cars, and he can fix them quite quickly and return to the top, because he is a great spectacle to watch fighting at the front. So we will just have to wait and see how he gets on. Alex Gillen and Elroy Guri up the front again, and still not too much to separate them, but there was an instant between the two drivers. Alex Gillen sending it up the inside when, you know, Elroy was already wheel-to-wheel with GB68, 2 teammates, and Alex Gillen dived it up there, basically barged the other 2 cars out the way and completed the move. For him, I'm sure in his stream he'd be like, that was a great move, chat, that was brilliant, double overtake, we'll take one of those. But for the other 2, I'm not sure they're going to be happy with that.
No, it's going to be intriguing. Obviously, we can only go off of what we have now, but when it comes to the stewards and what they see for it, that's a different story. At least for the time being, it is how it is. But I don't know. I think it's really hard on, you know, sometimes when it comes to the awareness of other cars around you. I mean, yes, you have, you know, arrows that detect when a car is starting to approach you, and, you know, it's to the right or left of you, when it's right behind you. I think it would be really cool to see if there was more of like a radar function that could just give you a bit more awareness of surrounding cars. Obviously, it could be more on the fault of Alex Gillen just not being aware of his surroundings, not realizing that, you know, he is in quite a close battle. He's 3 wide. He needs to make room and just make sure he's not making contact with other drivers. But it could also just come down to just not being aware, or something not indicating at that point that may help him understand that a car is going to be there, how can I avoid getting into some type of collision or contact with them and avoid, potentially penalizing myself by the stewards later in after the session's already finished.
Yeah, it does need to be careful, especially in a championship fight, because, if you go too aggressive and you make those mistakes, we saw Tiamat Marduk being a little bit aggressive with his overtakes and trying to get through the field quickly, and it all came undone. Consistency sometimes can be the better option. I think Elray was a more patient driver today, didn't send it on every single opportunity for overtakes, went for it when he was 100% sure, and at the end of the race, he finished one place behind Alex Gillen, who went for a more aggressive approach. Now, okay, Alex Gillen's like, cool, I went aggressive and I beat him, so it worked out for me. It might have worked out this time, but it might not work out next time. And Elray Guri going for that more patient approach and, focusing more so on the championship rather than just taking one race result over the course of the season could potentially score more points. And that's what we've been seeing so far this season from Elray. Just that consistency has really been shining through, and would have had another podium again last week had it not been for a late safety car coming out, pulling the pack back together, and with that penalty that Elray had kind of undoing the performance that him and Tom 97 did in that race. Tom 97, another driver who has the pace, incredible driving, incredible ability, but then just makes these silly mistakes. And I allude to that because he picked up another 3-second time penalty in the race. I saw it in the background as I think we're watching Alex Gillen, and he just went wide on the final corner, went really far wide, which is usually a tactic to avoid a penalty, that if you run really far wide, but you have to lift off the throttle, you have to back out of it slightly just to give up a small amount of time, and I don't believe he did that, and that of course gave him a 3-second time penalty. So a stupid maneuver to do to try and hold on to what would arguably be about 2/10 of a second.
Not my words, his words. Anyway, for qualifying, I want to do a little flashback towards Spain and Qatar. We'll first start with Qatar, 2 rounds back. We had a little bit of a collision between Dale and Meraki, and it both cost themselves opportunities for positions in qualifying. And in Spain, we had Panju at a 5-place grid penalty that he picked up. So considering the 3 drivers, I think the point I'm trying to make, especially with Qatar, with the collision being made between Dale and Meraki. Obviously, Dale's not here this weekend. He's being replaced by Patterson, who is driving on his behalf. But it still counts to the fact that, drivers need to give each other opportunity to all set down their lap times. They need to be aware of their surroundings. I'd argue there are certain aspects of qualifying where you need to be more aware than what you would be in a race. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're racing head-to-head with another driver in a race, you need to be fully aware of where they are and where you are so that you can place your car perfectly without causing any type of collision and have a fair, clean race with one another. But in qualifying, you need to place your car and also position yourself in a way that won't affect another person's lap time or also cause collision with another driver, which did end up happening in Qatar. And another thing as well, 5-place grid penalties. If you do have some type of collision with another driver, or even if it's something accidental that none of the drivers mean to do, you may pick up a grid penalty, and that also affects your race quite significantly because now you're out of position. You set down a time that should be in, let's say, P3. Now you're down in P8, all because you just didn't have the room for one another. So it's important to stay aware and stay in that right mindset so you can make sure you can position yourself correctly going into qualifying.
Yeah, certainly so. It's going to be a difficult track around here as well. Austria, it's a short lap. It's only really just over a minute long in terms of lap time, and all cars will be on track. There is a short qualifying session. It's not the full one because, of course, we've got the sprint weekend and the full race. So it's a short qualifying session, which means for the whole session, especially right to the end, all drivers are going to be out on track. So they're all going to have to make sure that they do not get in each other's way. No cars on the track at the moment, although it looks like we are going to get our first one, which is going to be one of the Hasses. And is it Alex Gillen or is it Matty D? It's Matty D.
It
Matty D, who's going out on the intermediates. Now, if you're asking the question right now, this is your first Creator Series race that you've tuned into, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you. Looking forward to having you join us for some incredible action. But why are they on the intermediate tyres? It's fully dry out there, as you can see. Sun is shining. This is for multiple reasons. One, to test equipment, make sure it's all working. Secondly, to not use up too many tyres. They want to keep their soft tyres for the race so that if there's a safety car. But in doing so, we saw the trend of drivers using the intermediates at the start. So we said, why not have a little bit of fun with it? Let's add an additional point for the drivers who set the fastest lap time on the inters within the first 6 minutes. And so that is why they're on track on intermediates right now. Matty D will be our first one. He's going to push for a hot lap on the intermediate tyres. And if he can get that fast lap time, then he will get an extra point to his name. But they have to do it before 12 minutes. If it runs over 12 minutes and they cross the line, it doesn't count.
The one thing I will say in terms of testing setups and getting a better idea on your lap times, it is a bit difficult. When you're on the intermediates, you're on treaded tyres. You're no longer on the slicks. I mean, these aren't really treaded, they're more grooved, right? They don't have tread like wet compound tyres do and the amount they pick up in terms of water. These are grooved tyres. So though they have more grip in terms than what the wet would, it still is affecting their grip and may give a bit more of a contradiction in terms of what they may feel in terms of their setup, and may give them the wrong information when they do go to the slick compound tyres. So it's important not to get too confused with your setup. However, a lot of the time when I have seen these interruns, they do still feel confident. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, it's just a fun little thing that we've introduced. It's a single point. So like I said, every point does matter and that the championship can be won by a single point. I believe it was Kimi Räikkönen back in 2007 who won by a single point and won that championship that year. So, you know, certain stuff like that, certain just little techniques and unique stuff like that just makes things fun and interesting and can really actually diversify how the championship does come to an end. So right now, it looks like we've just been on board with Matty D13 and the Haas P12. He'll be the first person coming across the line on those intermediates, and sets down a 107.941. Not too bad for intermediate tyres in dry conditions, but Tom decides, yeah, I don't really like 107.941. I'm going to set down a 105.934, which is already over 2 seconds more competitive in lap times. And Panju just setting a little bit quicker on those soft compound tyres, the slicks, with a 104.288.
Yeah, GB68 crossed the line on inters to start his lap. There's a lot of drivers coming across the line now with the kit car and then also a Red Bull, I believe that was as well. So on the clock, we got Panju, only really 1.5 seconds quicker on those soft tyres. So he'll be looking to go for a quicker lap than this. But of course, Team at Marduk, top of the timing screens on those inters. We got Tom as well. Alex Gillen's just come across the line. A lot of cars coming across the line right now, including the Ferrari of Adam Sanderson and the Red Bull of, I believe that is that guy Vince, who is just starting a lap time as well. At the back, we've also got Nagera, who I believe is starting a lap 2. We're riding on board with GB68 on those intermediate tyres. Let's see what the Aston Martin driver can do. His teammate could only manage 5th fastest, but what has GB68 got in the locker? There's still 1.5 minutes remaining in this session, so plenty of time to get this lap in through the final corner. Nice and tidy. Doesn't extend out too wide. Comes down to the line. Is it enough to beat Ben? No, it is not. Team at Marduk still the fastest driver on those intermediate tyres at the moment. Nagera goes up to P6. Who else is yet to set a lap time? Big Good. Not yet set a lap F1 on those Scott. Intermediate tyres. F1 Scott as well, who's going to come around the final corner. And he is starting a lap and is unable to get himself up there either. Let's see what Big Good can do. He's got 58 seconds on the clock, plenty of time. Rounds the final corner, comes down towards the line on those intermediate tyres. It's good enough for a respectable lap time, but that will not be scaring any drivers at the moment. F1 Scott invalidates. And Skyzy rounds the final corner. What can he do?
Only a 106.469, P10. And obviously it only counts for that single person who on those intermediates can go quicker than anyone else on the intermediates. And 12 minutes 26 on the clock are really starting to tick down to the final couple of seconds here. F1 Scott P16, he's invalidated for the 3rd time running on these intermediates and really hasn't been able to stick inside that white line. Unfortunately, he will not be able to set down a time in time, so F1 Scott will stay in P16 without having an opportunity to potentially get a point towards his name, and it's pretty much stuck in stone that it will be Team Marduk who picks up that extra point in the intermediate qualifying championship of sorts.
And it is confirmed, we've gone over the 12-minute point of the session. Team at Marduk gets an extra point for the weekend after the disappointment in the sprint, and he will be now getting that intermediate pole position. But now it's time for the soft tyre runs on board with the RB of Purya through the first corner, not attacking too much of the inside curb, that we will see other drivers really be aggressive with that curb. But it comes with warning because you can unsettle the car and lose a lot of lap time. So it's high risk, high reward. Now into turn 3. Big lockup, hits the apex nicely. But again, another corner that you can really run over the inside curb and gain you some more time. So plenty of time still to find on this lap from Purya, but it's looking clean so far. Heading down into turn 4. Brakes after the 100-meter board. Gets the car tucked in. Use the camber of the corners. The way that just drops away from you down there through turn 4 as you now throw the car through the left. 2 corners that are completely off camber. And you've really got to fight with the understeer through these corners. Now for Purya, he's going to be nice and tight through the right-hander into the final 2 turns. What has he got in his locker? Through the first right, really attack this first one. Full send, no real lift through there. Bit of a break through the final corner, back on the throttle, DRS open, first time on the softs. Can he beat Punju? Yes, he can. It's a 1:03.7, and Purya is looking very good with that lap time so far.
And we also have Kylon in P17. He's taking purple in the first sector, a 16.064. It was actually only a green sector, even though it said purple in the first sector for Purya. He did take purple in the second sector. So we'll have to wait and see how Kylon does track along here. It is only a personal best in the second, but he is trailing along well and truly nicely. Can he be out Purya to potentially go up to P1? That is the question we need to answer as we go into the final couple of corners. You need to really try and bring in as much top speed as possible. DRS active, trying to find that consistency, but only a 1:04.266. Doesn't have the time necessary. Goes P2 right ahead of his teammate of Punju by not too much of a margin. That's 22 milliseconds separating between 2 and 3. So really close margins between the 2 Williams drivers for the time being. We also have Tom97 who's just getting going on his lap time, and a few others who are really starting to set down some competitive sectors. We actually have the P3 position of Punju, who's just set down purple in the first sector, but has fallen away from him as he goes over the grass into the second, and a few more purples being set. I believe that's El Rey Guri who's gone purple in the second sector. If we go down to P11, going into the final corner, what can the Aston Martin do? DRS active and up to the line. Will it be better than anyone else? Yes, it can. A 1:03.564, and Aston Martin setting a lap alight that no one else could beat, at least for the time being. Provisional pole set down.
Yeah, great lap there from El Rey Guri. Purya actually got a 5-place grid penalty for illegal blocking down in towards someone just after he set his lap time. So not sure what exactly he did through turn 1. I'm sure we will get maybe some sort of update in the session to see what happened to Purya, but he's going to be unhappy with that hovering over his name as Tom97 goes up to 4th, Zafso into 3rd. We're watching on board with Tiamat Marduk, our race winner last time out at the Spanish Grand Prix, our reigning world champion as well, dropping down to 11th as GB68 rises to the top of the timing screens. He can take a bath after putting that lap time in. That was incredible stuff there from GB68, 2 tenths clear of his teammate. Tiamat Marduk, though, what has he got in the locker? Rounds the first of the double left-handers, uses all the track available to him on the right-hand side, throws the car in just a little bit too wide of the apexes. You don't want to touch the curves as it will unsettle the car, but you can definitely get closer than what Tiamat Marduk has done so far. Now into the final 2 corners for this banker lap, throws it in, runs it right on the white line into the last turn, can definitely take more of that curb, locked up slightly in towards that final corner, and it's good enough for 6th position. And we were talking a lot about M Sky Z maybe being off the pace so far this season. He's had a great lap, up in a P5.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to GB68 and the Aston Martin, I was just tracking along using my live telemetry, and so he took purple in the second sector, and then it was all put together in that third and final one. It was a personal best in the first, but at 1:03.395, what a competitive lap time from the Aston Martin. He'll be making his way back into the pit lane, but times do not stop coming along here. Looks like it's going to be Noguera who's going to be the next one across, who will be setting down the time. We have a few people who are still out on track with their 1 lap old soft compound tyre, but a majority of not all of them, will be making their way back into the pit lane from their fast laps, and it will be the Mercedes who will be next up to prove what he can do. I mean, it is an improvement because right now he has a 106.085 from his intermediate run, and did not get the 1 point towards his name, obviously going to Tiamat Marduk, who's only managed to set down P6. So the team from Brackley will want to see what they can do and what pace they have on their side. Set up a lot more freedom compared to what I normally see in Formula 2, and just means that we can set up some fantastic qualifying laps like we saw just with GB, who goes up to P1. So the Mercedes around the final couple of corners. Let's take you on a nice little lap around the Red Bull Ring. We go into the final corner at turn 10 before you get the throttle down, the loud pedal all the way to the absolute limit before you break downshifting all the way to 4th gear, making sure to just stick inside. A bit of a twist there on the rear end of the car, but it keeps it all inside track limits and it keeps it nice and stable. Then you go up towards a hill, turn 2 at the kink of the straight before going into turn 3, getting the rotation necessary, continue with the throttle all the way down. DRS is then active. Looks like he's going to get a little bit of a slipstream and tow from the V-carb up ahead. Just needs to be aware that the V-carb needs to get out of his way. I'd suggest maybe going to the inside line of him, and now can go to the outside as we approach into turn 6. Once again, the double left-hander, just want to maybe take that apex. He misses it by a few centimeters, so it won't affect his lap time too badly. Purple in the second sector, well, my live telemetry does say the same, so it looks like Mercedes really starting to set something quite competitive on the board here. Downshifting not necessary as you just brake going into there. Downshifting to 5th as you come into the final corner, and now DRS flat to the floor all the way to the line. It's a 103.469, 2.6 seconds, and just misses out by a 10th of a second on what could have been a fantastic provisional pole lap time.
Yeah, great lap time there from Nogueira to move himself up in his second. Tiamat Marduk just rose up to P2 momentarily before being toppled by the Mercedes. Now it's the time for the championship leader. Elray Guri rounds the final corner. Full commitment round there. He keeps it within the white lines. Can he go to the top? No. It's only good enough for, it's not an improvement. It's a 103.564, and it's still off of his teammate GB68. So he's going to have to try and see if he's got enough time to go again in this session. That might have been on a used set of tyres, hence why it was not good enough for the lap time up at the top. Right, somebody that we've been talking a lot about in the pre-show and building up to this race, MSkyZ. He's not quite had the pace of F1 23, but can he pull it back? He's currently in 8th position in this qualifying session, out-qualifying his teammate, which rarely has happened so far this season, and it's nice and tidy through the first corner, keeps within the track limits. Let's watch on board with the Kick Sauber car and try to understand what potentially might be going wrong for MSkyZ. Into turn 3, big lockup, but he gets the car turned in nicely, back on the throttle, and it looks to me like the car is maybe getting bogged down a little bit too much. Maybe he's getting in too high of a gear coming out of slow speed corners. Let's watch it again through turn 4. Listen to the revs. That was a lot better this time around through turn 4. Keeps it nice and tight on the right hand side before he sends it full commitment into the double left-hander, back on the throttle, and now once again through the second part. A little bit wide of the apex, don't want to touch the curb on the inside, but you want to get closer than that. Now, it's all about full commitment into these final 2 corners. Ride the curb on the inside, he's wide of it, ride the curb in the final corner. Again, not quite as committed as Elray Guri was, but will it be an improvement of lap time? And it is, and it's up in a P3. MSkyZ, is he back?
Have you ever heard of something called commentator's curse? Normally it's the reverse of something. So maybe you saying that maybe he's lost some of that pace, he's gone, you know what, screw you Hayden, I do have pace. And he's just showing you exactly that. P3 for the Kick Sauber. Fantastic job on his side. Patterson finding some good personal improvements as he enters the 3rd and final sector. Mercedes of Unstopped Rob on 1 lap old soft compound tyres coming back into the pit lane. So we go to Patterson, who's 3.5 tenths up on his time. P17 where he currently sits, reserving for Mr. Dale J.E. Through the final corner, DRS active, flat to the floor. It's only a 104.683. Stays in P17. I'll tell you what, I'm looking at these interval times between some of these drivers. My God, the deficit is nothing. Infradic in the Ferrari also getting going on his lap time. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but the clouds are getting a bit overcasty here in Austria. maybe some rain is to be expected in the feature race. Now, I could be stretching a little bit, but it's all a potential chance. Purple in the first sector for the Ferrari driver is only actually a personal best, just the purple in the game. And Ferrari out of the exit of turn 5, now getting the rotation as he goes into turn 6, and the double left-hander making sure to maximize, going right over to the outside line onto the AstroTurf, continuing to slam down that throttle to kick out the rear and then regain control with the the significant amount of stability and traction that you can get in these cars. Ferrari really pushing the limits and right over that inside line. My God, nearly getting track limits, but not getting anything on that occasion. Only P15, however.
Yeah.
Looked like he was really pushing the limits there. Adam Sanderson, his teammate, unfortunately invalidating as he starts to approach the timing line.
Yeah, it looked really good from Infratic. I was quite surprised that the lap time wasn't quite there from the Ferrari driver. I was expecting him to rise to nearer the high ends of the standings, but sadly for him, not quite on it as Alex Gillen is starting a lap. His teammate Matty D will shoot up to P15. The times and the drivers are going to start coming in now as they're starting their laps, and we're going to try and pick them up as and when we can. Teammate Marduk beginning his lap now as all the drivers have 1 minute remaining on the clock. Those drivers further down the field yet to set that lap, yet to start that lap, are going to have to really be on it as quickly as they can. But for teammate Marduk, let's see what he can do. A little bit of correction down through turn 3. That certainly could lose him a little bit of time. We'll have to see whether he's up on his time or not at the end of sector 2, and whether we stick with the McLaren driver for the end of this lap. Down in towards now the double left-handers. Is he currently up on his lap time? Through the first one. Oh, that is wide of the apex. It's not a clean lap from the McLaren driver. He's only down by 1/10 of a second. There could be time to find in the final corners. But first of all, though, it's going to be F1. No, it's not going to be F1 Scott. I thought F1 Scott was there to round the final corner. In fact, it was M-Sky-Z to start his lap. But it is going to be TMM Marduk who does round the final corner, crosses the line. There's a crash on the start-finish straight. He does go up to P2, but Big Good out of the session after a crash as he rounds the final corner.
And Tom moves up to P3. Nogueira around the final corner. Mercedes is really starting to push the limits. Teammate Marduk only need to find 9 milliseconds to go up to P2. Nogueira will only finish in P4. More drivers starting to approach in. V-Car P7 and 8. Skyzy in P6. GB 68. Holy mother of God, what a lap time. A 1:03.095. Nearly 3/10 ahead of Teammate Marduk in P2. Aston Martin really showed their pace at the very end. And now we still have Skyzy who has an opportunity, 1.9 down.
Yeah,
May
I
not
think
be
he's backed
pushing
out of
anymore.
it.
And looks like also Matty D13, 2 laps down. That's well and truly set in stone, ladies and gentlemen. GB68 on pole position. And what a lap to do so, a 1:03.095. Smashed it out the park at the very last second.
GB68 has never won a race in the Creator Series. He's took a sprint race win, but we're not counting one of those. GB68, this could be that opportunity to take the race win. However, there are going to be 70 plus laps that await him, that he's got to try and stay at the front, nail the strategy, not make an error. There's a lot to focus on in these situations, but he's going to be really pushing to try and get that first ever race win in the Creator Series. And this is a great opportunity for him, not only for the race win, but also for the championship. Because yes, his teammate is leading the way, and Aston Martin are looking very strong at the moment, but he's going to want to try and come back if he can. And those are the starting orders for today. GB68 is our driver, who is on pole position. Teammate Marduk will line up in second place with Aure Guri in third. Then it is Tom in fourth. Nogueira will be fifth with M-Sky-Z. A great performance from the kit car up in a P6. Then it's Gillen, followed by Unstopped Rob, Tom 97, Perya. Outside the top 10, it's F1 Scott, that guy Vince, Safso, and Kalen, and Adam Sanderson, who will all gain from Perya's penalty. There's Punju, Matty D, Infratic, Big Good, and Patterson as a late jump in for Mr. Dale will be our driver at the back of the order. What a qualifying session that was.
Yeah, I actually have a little statistic for you. I was paying close attention to the timing sheets, and I really started to notice, I believe it was Tim Marduk or another driver right in the top 3 or top 4, separated by around 9 milliseconds. The gaps were tiny, and inside, from P17 to P1, was a 1-second deficit. All the way from those positions. That just shows you how competitive and close the grid was and how close every single lap was. A single second separating from P1 to P17, and it was still only 1.3 when you went down to P20. So it really showed you how close it got.
Yeah, really, really close between these drivers. Every single one has the potential, and that is why consistency is the most important thing in this championship. Yeah, you can be really, really quick, and you can set the timing screen to light, and you can put yourself at the top in qualifying. But if you make those mistakes in the race, if you cannot last a full 100% race on F1 24, then sorry, you're not going to be scoring those points, you're not going to be reaching those heights, and you're probably not going to be fighting for the championship. And that's why the drivers who are currently, up in the front fighting for it, your Tiamat Marduk, your Alex Gillen, and your Elray Guri, have been the most consistent drivers so far this season. For those drivers chasing, that's what they need to change. That's what they need to start to be. Not just be one of the fastest out on track, but be the most consistent. Sometimes you don't always have to go for that race win. You can settle for a second place as long as you keep on getting those second positions. And that's what we've heard from Elray Guri. If he hasn't got the pace to win, he's not worried. He's not focusing on the race win this season. Instead, he's going to settle for a second or a third because he knows it's important points for the championship. And that's really going to separate all of these drivers at the end of this race come the checkered flag. I forgot what the flag was, but it's a checkered flag. We got it in the end.
Yeah. I think it was something I said in Formula 2 last night. There's a difference between desperation and confidence. There'll be situations where a driver is confident. They know when they can overtake. They know they can make a move. They feel confident in themselves and their ability to really score high. And then there's desperation. Someone who may still have that confidence, their ability to know they can do well. But let's say it's the final lap. Let's say the pressure is on. They need to make a move. Desperation kicks in. But race is about to get underway. There are 5 red lights awaiting us. 100% distance, it's out, and we are away here for the feature race here in Austria for Formula 1. Tom already down to P4, Elray Guri gets up to P3, and there's a spin, and it looks like Alex Gillen down to P7. Looks like that spin may have been just a nudge off to the side. F1 Scott down to P11, close racing. Alex Gillen up to P7 again as it goes to wheel for the Mercedes, but then Nogueira goes up to P5. Now leaving Skyzy down to P6. Yellow flag down to the second sector. Tom 97 goes spinning round at turn 3. And now the V-Carb down to P20. Dead last for the grid. Looks like Skyzy also falling down multiple positions. Another mistake for the Kick Sauber as he finds himself making slight contact to the V-Carb of Tom 97, may even be Purya, who made himself up to P15, but he's now up to P4. A fantastic move from the Ferrari against Infratic, which also saw Patterson up to P15. Carnage off the start here. Tiamat Marduk still staying in P2, trying to bring himself closer towards GB68. Carnage unfolding across the entirety of the grid so far. Red Dwarf, Zakai Vince looking to potentially close in a potential move, but P10 may be staying that going through into turn 1 as we go a little bit further down. The racing is still quite colossal at the moment, and F1 Scott in P16 trailing behind. Alex Gillen goes up to P7 against Sav, so no DRS. DRS will be active. Obviously up to 2 laps is necessary for DRS to be active. More contact made. McLaren nearly losing the rear end there, but goes down to P12. Tom up to P2 against Tiamat Marduk. McLaren losing 2 positions in 2 different parts of the track. Aston Martin still right on the rear end of Tiamat Marduk. Wow, what carnage we are getting so far here in Austria.
Yeah, absolute carnage at the start. Tom 97 just losing it at turn 3, and then M Sky Z at the following corner into turn 4. Reversed onto track. There's no ghosting in the Creator Series, so you have to be careful about your rejoins, and I think he just reversed straight into the pathway of Matty D. Matty D collided with him, and rightfully so, MSkyZ got given, I believe it was a 10-second time penalty for a dangerous rejoin into the path of Matty D. But Tom on a charge, he always likes to go for the softer of compound tyres compared to other drivers, and you've got Team Marduk going for the longest stint on the hards with El Rey Guri, who's now all over his tail in this race. El Rey Guri having a little look at Team Marduk, but up at the front, Tom fancies the race lead, and he takes it away from GB68, who now will drop down into second position. But Team Marduk, El Rey Guri, just being patient, playing the long game, and then it's the two Mercedes drivers of Nogueira and Unstopped Rob in P5 and P6, followed by two drivers on the soft tyres of Alex Gillen and Zafso. So surprisingly, Alex Gillen and Zafso unable to make too much inroads on those drivers up at the front, as just behind them you've got a Ferrari fighting. I believe that is Adam Sanderson fighting with Kalon, unable to get the overtake done, and Adam Sanderson settles for the position. But I'm surprised those soft tyres were unable to work their way further up through the field, and now 2 seconds off the pace of those mediums, losing the DRS. Those soft tyres aren't really working in their favour, as MSkyZ, after a great qualifying session, the race really isn't going his way, as he's had another spin now down into the double left-handers and needs a safety car or a red flag to get himself back in this race. Change at the front.
Does that count as does that matter as a double commentator's curse, as Tom falls down to P2 and GB68 goes back up into P1? Fantastic change for position, doesn't need to even worry about the corner affecting his position. That guy Vince in the Red Bull goes up to P8 against Savzo in P9. Adam Sanderson fighting well and truly neck and neck, wheel to wheel, as they go two abreast on the back straight here in Austria, poaching into turn 4. Is he going to send it? No, Be Good backs out of it, stays in P12 as the McLaren rotates through the corner, and Adam Sanderson looking pretty good at the moment, a man on a mission, trying to get into the top 10 at the moment. But I don't know if it's the same as Formula 2. Is points given all the way down to P15?
It is all the way down to P15.
Yep.
Race win gets you 25, then it's 20, then it's 2-point increments all the way down to 8. 8 gets 8, and then it's 1 all the way down to P15, with P15 getting the final point. So there is something to fight for up and down this race order.
Well, Mercedes of Unstopped Rob bringing himself quite close to his teammate at the moment. Nogueira also just trying to bring himself closer towards El Rey Guri. Obviously, we're starting to see a bit more of a DRS train, but not for Tom, as he goes on the outside line, not wasting any time on the outside, making sure to maximize rotation through the corner. And wow, what a fantastic exit, getting the throttle down. GB868, however, will get DRS, and it's going to be this neck and forth clearly all the way until the first couple of pits that we're going to see. Obviously, we're only on lap 5 of 71, so we've got a long race ahead of us. But Aston Martin still trying to make a potential opportunity to overtake the Alpine driver. Can't seem to get it done. Has a better apex exit compared to Tom in the Alpine, but who can maximize the circuit more? Right now, it seems to be pretty equal between the two drivers. Aston Martin looking for it, but will just maybe potentially lay back a little bit more. Knows he'll get DRS going down the pit straight. Aston Martin needs to line it up. He needs a good exit. Alpine may have just got the better of him on that occasion. Goes up to 3/10 with DRS active, but it doesn't seem to want to affect him. But no, once again, DRS is the biggest consideration when it comes to overtaking. Now decides to go for it. DRS is active. And wow, this is going to be a nice swift move. Outside line, no problems at all. And a cruise right past him. Nice and easy for the Aston Martin. Can his teammate, however, El Rey Guri in P4, potentially thinking about making a move against Team Marduk? And can GB68 in any type of capacity potentially help him? I'd say passively he's already doing that by fighting against Tom in P1, who now also goes back up into the lead of this race. Does that give him an opportunity to potentially fight back and give himself an opportunity for El Rey Guri to maybe find himself up into P3, even into P2, and an Aston Martin 1-2 by the end of this race?
Yeah, those two at the front trying to switch positions to work together and break away from the rest of the pack, but sadly for those two, the pack is tight to the back of them, and it's very difficult then to drive away. I alluded to maybe the soft tyres not working in this race, and they really aren't. That guy Vince went from, being on the medium tyres, I believe, behind, yes, he is on medium tyres, behind Alex Glynn and Zafso, to then overtaking them as Elray Guri goes for the maneuver on Tiamat Marduk. Tiamat Marduk off the track. How many times have we seen those two go side by side? Instead, it's going to be Nogueira who moves himself into third position in this race, with Elray Guri trying to come back on the inside now as Unstopped Rob getting himself in there. It's a Mercedes sandwich, but no, it's not. Unstopped Rob gets both of them, moves up into third position, and Elray Guri in that battle with Tiamat Marduk has actually potentially cost them the DRS off of Tom and GB68. And now those two have got a plan. They're going to work together. They're not going to fight, and they're going to try and break away from the rest of the pack. But coming back to Alex Glynn and Zafso, the soft tyres really not a good race tyre in this race, because that guy Vince overtook both of them, and they're not able to catch back up to the pack unless that guy Vince can bring them back to this 4 cluster.
It's clear to see that the C5 compound tyres, the softest in the entire Pirelli range, has a lot of lateral energy that is brought into the rear end of the tyres, and it really affects the grip and clearly degrades quite quickly. So maybe it's an independent race between the mediums and hards, and anyone that may have saved the pair could be just finding himself in a bit of a better place than anyone that may be on the soft compound tyres. It's Tom. Oh, a bit of a slide there, but he does take P1, and will that affect his overtaking opportunity? Well, not for GB68. On the exit, does go on the inside line, cruising by him, and the Aston Martin just defending that inside line, keeps it well and truly nice and nip and tuck, no problems at all, up to P1, goes GB68, and Tom back down to P2. Once again, Alpine and Aston Martin in a very heated battle at the moment, and Elray Guri just starting to bring himself closer. Obviously, you alluded to the fact that a second had been broken, and that could be potentially another incident of desperation or confidence, but Unstopped Rob, El Guri, and Nogueira, I'm still learning the names, I'm trying my best here, have all started to get back inside that little DRS train and see if they can try and fight back for potential positions.
Yeah, good drive there from Unstopped Rob to pull the rest of the train back in to the rest of them, and I've just praised him. What is it with my commentator's curse today? Unstopped Rob now with a 3-second time penalty. I was actually about to praise him even further. Sprint race win, and I don't know if we've had a driver who has won both the sprint race and the main race in Creator Series F1, and thinking maybe Unstopped Rob has a great chance of being that driver. He's going to need to hope and pray that all the other drivers pick up a 3-second time penalty, and then he can really fight for this race win. But unfortunately for Unstopped Rob, 3 seconds will be added to his name as Tom97 has been removed from the session. He is still racing after recovering from that spin, and he is actually right on the back of the rest of the drivers. But that's going to compromise him, and he's going to get back into the session as quickly as possible to try and get himself in the mix. Little other battles are going on through the field. Infratic and F1 Scott, two drivers that battled quite a lot so far this season, seem to be having their own little ding-dong, as Big Good is holding up an almighty train of Adam Sarnason, Kalon, Infratic, F1 Scott, Punju, Peya, and then Tom97 catching up to the back of this train, and Big Good has just picked himself a 3-second time penalty. So all those drivers following him at the moment will be looking to try and gain off of that one. M Sky Z, our first retirement and our only retirement from this race so far. I don't know if he picked up any further damage from the issues, whether it was side pod, rear wing, or whatever. He potentially might have picked up some rear wing damage from the collision with Matty D when he reversed onto the track into Matty D's path. And that might be the reason for his DNF. But Elray Guri having a look now on Unstopped Rob, up the inside, in towards turn 4, and it's a good overtake. He's going to get it done, and he does now on those hard compound tyres. Maybe the hards starting to work a little bit better than the mediums now, and Elray Guri can go on the attack on Tom and his teammate GB68.
Yeah, Elray Guri still right next to Tom. He's looking for a potential opportunity, but just hanging back, because DRS is once again a big consideration that all these drivers need to put into consideration, and Elray Guri doing exactly that. Has a perfect lineup out of the exit of the corner, but a DRS train will definitely halt any type of gain in position, but he is gaining. Slowly but surely, he is finding time, getting the throttle down, using the loud pedal to the metal, flat to the floor, but it's actually going to be Tom back on GB68 for who knows how many times. The back and forth between these two has been epic, but it's once again just giving an opportunity to now GB68's teammate, your current championship leader, Elray Guri, has really started to close in the gap at the moment. More wheel-to-wheel action between GB68 and Tom in the Alpine. Does this open another big opportunity for Elray Guri? An opportunity to potentially flip the strategy in the favor of the championship leader. Any contender that's near him, Teammate Marduk, Alex Gillen, they're still in P6 and P8. This is the biggest opportunity that Aston Martin have to potentially maximize their position. Tom, their only real defending, chess piece is DRS. Without it, they could immediately be overtaken by Elray Guri. It is absolutely imperative that he continues to get the exit that he's been getting. Otherwise, Tom may end up losing position out to Elray Guri. He needs to try and keep the dirty air, or almost a mixture of dirty and clean air that is being produced by GB68, which is, in this perfect example, around the outside and back up into P1. And Elray Guri once again closing it in, but for how much longer? Nogueira wants a nice little opportunity to potentially get involved in the fight. Wheel-to-wheel action, two abreast as we go on down the back straight out of the exit of turn 3, and Mercedes is really still trying to close it in, defending. Slight contact made to the Aston, pushes him aside. Even slight contact to the GB68 Aston Martin. That may be just a little bit worse in terms of competitive times. If there is any type of damage, I think it will be fine. But Elray Guri may just be on the back foot just a little bit more. Needs to overtake another driver to once again make this another big competitive Aston Martin brawl against the Alpine. Sends it down around the outside, but Mercedes having it well and truly covered. Elray Guri is really trying to make every move stick as quickly as possible and not wasting any time. Inside line, late on the break, move made, consistency and form is there. And once again, really trying to put on everything he can as GB68 continues this battle with Tom.
Yeah, needs to bring himself back into this race and really bring his focus back up. I think he lost his head slightly after the contact with Nogueira. Not really too much of Nogueira's fault. Yes, okay, he made a mistake, but it wasn't like it was done on purpose. Just locked the rear tyres heading into the braking zone, and that rotated the car into Elray Guri. I don't think Elray Guri picked up any damage, but then Elray Guri went on the attack through the double right-hander right at the end of the lap, and when it was desperate around the outside, could have easily picked up a warning, maybe even a penalty for track limit. So he needs to rein it back in. He's still in this race. He's still in third position, in a great place at the moment. Zafso, our first driver to come in and make a pit stop, and has gone on to a set of hard tyres they'll be trying to take for a long time. Further down the back, I believe Patterson has just brought out a yellow flag down into turn 1, but it looks like he's all up and running once again. So not too sure what happened to Patterson, but mistakes were made from him and a yellow flag was brought out. This cluster still remaining together. The top 6 still holding their own amongst each other as GB68 and Tom once again trading positions. Elray Guri looking to try and get involved, unable to find a gap there. Might try it down into turn 4. Then you've got a bit of a train of Alex Gillen, that guy Vince, just together. And then the bigger train of Infratic, you've got the rest of them lot down. And it's quite a big train. And they're all scrapping away at the moment down the back. You've got Kalon and Infratic going wheel to wheel now, down in towards turn 4. Kalon around the outside, and Adam Sanderson in the other Ferrari. Wow. A big move on the inside, spooked his teammate slightly, who's gone for a fantastic switchback from Infratic. It is still 3 wide, in towards the left-hander. The two Ferraris wheel-to-wheel, giving each other plenty of space. Adam Sanderson trying to keep his nose in contact there with F1 Scott. I think F1 Scott just about, no, he got shoved off into the gravel by Adam Sanderson. Adam Sanderson too aware of his teammate, not focusing on what other drivers were doing around him. And you've got to say that was poor awareness from Adam Sanderson, moving into the path of F1 Scott and just shoving him off into the gravel as Tom and GB68 once more switching positions. But here comes Elray Guri.
And finally getting an opportunity. We've been waiting for this moment. And finally, Aston Martin are putting it all on the pressure of Alpine. Tom has the DRS, but it's a stronger slipstream and draft in the favour of the Aston Martin. It's an Aston Martin 1-2, and the Alpine of Tom has really started to need to apply the pressure. But have a look at the rear light. If you go on board of Tom, what rear light is flashing at the moment is El Guri. He's used too much of his battery, or at least potentially for that lap around. Apparently he's still on 79%, so I don't know what it may have been. He may have switched to recharge mode, so now he's potentially thinking about saving his battery while also potentially thinking about making a move. So it is actually really smart in terms of battery saving and how he's using it strategically so he can maximize his battery while also still staying competitive lap after lap. And obviously great racing in the midfield. Obviously it was F1 Scott who just looked on the outside line. Adam Sanderson completely unaware of the kick Sauber being there and got on throttle a little bit too early and lost the rear end of his car, causing the kick Sauber to get onto the gravel and lost himself multiple positions down to P15. Adam Sanderson still has an opportunity, but right now it's between Kylon as well, but you're right, El Guri up to P1. The teammates do switch way and not too much fighting, really stopping the two as GB68 not giving him an easy time, but definitely not getting in his way. Tom up to P3 as Nogueira wants to get up into the top three now. Podium really starting to shift around. Mercedes slight contact to the rear right tire, and McLaren of Tiamat Marduk also getting an opportunity. The outside line for the British constructor, but is he going to be pushed wide? No, right inside the white line. Wheel to wheel into the final corner. Tiamat Marduk put it all on the table, and it's up to P4 for the McLaren driver. 3/10 separating Tom to the two drivers as well. This is really starting to close in with one another, and McLaren really starting to push himself closer. You can see the battery being recharged for Tom's battery, but he's actually only got 11% left. So that Alpine has really used up majority of his electric motors in his hybrid system. He's used them up, and this could be a better advantage for someone like Tiamat Marduk, who now uses the DRS plus his hybrid system to send it down the inside. There goes the Australian driver, Ben needing to try and make it stick on the inside line. It's still wheel to wheel. Who will make it stick around the outside once again? And can he finally get the rotation necessary? Perfect defense and a perfect line taken by the Alpine of Tom, but still McLaren hangs around. The Australian wants to get the move stuck in stone, can't seem to get it done. Tiamat Marduk really trying to push for the podium position.
This is working in the favour of the Aston Martin too, because it's allowing them to break away. Tomin now out of the DRS. The medium tyres are no longer the better tyre in this race. The hards are really starting to work well, and that is why GB68 is just clawing onto the back of El Guri, allowing him to pull him along. But now GB68 goes to the move, as does Tiamat Marduk, into third position, overtakes Tom because he knows he needs to. He knows he needs to get on the back of El Guri and GB68 to take the DRS. Otherwise, these two are just going to drive away. El Guri going for the move once again on GB68. GB68 allows him to do so, and Tiamat Marduk just on the edge of the DRS at the moment. Needs to really push through this middle sector, through the final sector, before the DRS detection point, to try and stay on the back of these guys, and it looks like he's done a great job of doing so. And El Guri on those hards needs to use GB68 to give him a bit of safety, a bit of a buffer. Otherwise, we're going to see El Guri and Tiamat Marduk really fight this out for the race. Zafso picks up a 3-second time penalty for track limits, and no other battles really going on track apart from this incredible fight at the front. El Guri, GB68, Tiamat Marduk, Tom, Nogueira, and Unstopped Rob, all separated by what is probably about a second and a half, 2 seconds. Very, very close between those drivers. The GB68 has a little look at the back of El Guri. I think he's being a little bit more patient, waiting maybe for this straight, or just using GB68, or just using El Guri as a little bit of a tow, and he is going to use him now down in towards turn 4, overtakes the Aston Martin. And whilst these two are too busy DRSing and ERSing and overtaking each other, that doesn't allow Tiamat Marduk to go for the overtake, because El Guri will get past GB68, and Ben won't want to go wheel to wheel with the driver in second, because if you fight too hard, it allows the leader to drive away, and you don't have slipstream.
Yeah, absolutely. McLaren is in a bit of a tricky situation at the moment, but he needs to pick the right moment. Genuinely, what I'm kind of picturing in my head here, if El Guri decides to go for another move onto that back straight, the exit, out of the exit of turn 1, the long straight, and which also includes the kink of turn 2, and they do go wheel to wheel, it's the biggest opportunity that Tiamat Marduk may have of making an overtake. Right now you can see the wheel to wheel happening, and this is exactly what I was picturing in my head. McLaren on the inside line, 3 wide, becomes 2 wide. McLaren sending it down the inside. GB68 trying to bring it everything to him, but McLaren has the advantage. He has the throttle, he has the DRS, and he's going to send it down the inside in a borough of moves. It is up to P1. Tiamat Marduk takes the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. Mamma mia, what was that? That was something special.
That was an unbelievable couple of corners from Tiamat Marduk. Great drive out of turn 1. Overtook GB68 after the mistake through that first corner. And then, of course, a huge lunge up the inside of El Guri. Take a bow, Tiamat Marduk. He takes the lead of the race, but he's got a long way to go to try and hold on to it. 20 laps gone, make that 21 and 71 total. So 50 laps left to go in this race. We're in for an incredible battle between these 6 drivers, and you still got Tom, Nogueira and Unstopped Rob just waiting in the wings. Up at the back there, you've got Nogueira now getting past Tom as El Guri retakes the lead of the race up at the front as well. Tiamat Marduk drops in a second, and yes, he will have DRS now on El Guri to retake that position. And now maybe these two, they're on the hard tyres. They will have the tyre advantage over the mediums. Are these two going to work together to try and break away from the rest of the field? That's what needs to happen in order for it to become a 2-horse race. It needs some drivers to work together to break away from the rest. I think these two have the best opportunity being on the better tyres at this stage of the race. So it's up to GB68 to stay on the back of them as much as he can and really try and stay close. Into the box has come Alex Gillen. He's rejoined in 15th place. Actually lost out a bit of ground to Zafso, who's in 13th position, but will have good tyres to try and catch back up, and he is actually right on the tail of Zafso now as he overtakes Tom 97. I don't know if Tom 97 got back into the lobby, but I believe he did do so. But Infratic and Punju actually having a really good race up into the points. 8th and 9th at the moment in this race. Adam Sanderson as well. We were talking about it at the start of the race. He's definitely found some more form on F1 24, and that's been showing today. Into P10. Into the top 10 at the moment, just behind his teammate. Kalon as well having a very, very strong race. Big Good Sally taking a lot of penalties, but a long way to go still. Plenty of opportunities to still stay in the points. But it's going to be up to Alex Gillen, you know. Took that soft tyre early on. What can they do in this race with a different strategy to try and get back up the order and try and close in on these drivers at the front?
It was also Infratic who goes up to P8, but no, you make a great point. And this is exactly what, actually, you know what, I'm also a bit intrigued. Because I thought he was going to go from the soft compound tyres to the hard compound tyres, go long even potentially to the end of the race. But he's gone for the medium compound tyres. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a good tyre to go for. It's a good middle ground, but it has a huge drop-off. The C4s, they have fantastic gripping, fantastic pace, and they do go the long distance. But those hards can really maximize near the end of a stint. And as we can also see, El Guri looking to potentially size up a move, but can't seem to get it done going into turn 1. Potentially thinking about doing it, and yes, he will. DRS active, approaching into the kink of turn 2. Tiamat Marduk falls back down to P2 as El Guri once again takes the lead. But the point I was making before, I can only assume, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are people doing 22 laps on these medium compound tyres. It's clear that there is pace and there is longevity in the medium compound tyres, but maybe he might be thinking that there'd be some type of safety car or some type of opportunity to potentially go on the softs at the very end. It is a long shot from me, but I don't know, it just seems weird for you to go on the medium compound tyres. The hard seems like the better choice, so I am intrigued in the direction he's going. Unless he is going to do a 2-stop, it is fair because he is going to have fresher tyres near the end of the race, and right now he's on a bit more of an undercut strategy compared to an overcut and has a better opportunity potentially to make up positions in the beginning. How he wants to treat that later into the race will also end up becoming a question that will be answered later on down the line. But Tim McMurdoch and El Rey Guri continuing to fight away, and so are other drivers trying to catch back up, but they are working together, as you mentioned, using the DRS, using each other to bring each other closer to one another and keep the pace competitive, giving each other a good opportunity to try and pull away from GB68 and the drivers behind. It doesn't help that P3 and drivers behind still have DRS, and that's why it's important to break it, because that is when we're going to start seeing a difference. Tim McMurdoch on the outside line, no problems at all, and no fight from the Aston Martin up to P1. Goes the McLaren driver, and it's clear to see that there is a bit of teamwork happening between P3 and P1 in the Drivers' Championship right now.
Yeah, certainly so. I've just had some information in the chat. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. It could just be the chat trolling us. But they say apparently it's going to rain. Rain is on the way at some point in this race. So that might explain Alex Gillen's reasoning to go onto the medium tyres. Now, I assume he's going to be in hot lap mode and really pushing lap on lap as he's now onto the back of Big Good in this race. He's going to be wanting to get past him as soon as possible. And he's going to be wanting to get past a lot of these drivers as soon as possible. He cannot afford to be held up in this race at all by any driver at any point. Heading down now into the double right, and I think he's just going to use this opportunity to save the battery, build it back up, so once he gets back past Big Good, he can go into hot lap mode once again and really push in this race. Now he's going aggressive. ERS is activated. He's going down into the first corner, and it looks like Adam Sanderson has come into the pit lane as well, but Alex Gillen overtakes Big Good, moves back up into the top 10, and will now put that car back into hot lap mode and try to catch up to Punju as quickly as possible. Once he breaks past Punju and Infratic, then it's trying to get that guy Vince, who he was around with anyway. So Alex Gillen on the charge at the moment on those medium tyres, utilising them. Adam Sanderson just out of the pit lane and rejoins with Kalon, who he was fighting with earlier on in that cluster. So those two close together once again. They're going to need to work together. And Adam Sanderson on the medium tyres, potentially looking for that rain that might be on the way in this race. Up at the front, GB68 is really close up to the back of Tiamat Marduk, who has dropped off the back of El Rey Guri.
He apparently, I may be seeing something, but GB ghosted into Tiamat Marduk. So I could be seeing something, but I may have just seen a ghost appear in GB. Either way, Punju up to P8, but he's coming into the pit lane, so Alex Gillen will once again re-overtake that. Tiamat Marduk still trying to keep this consistency and pace on his side. He's now 7 tenths behind El Rey Guri, and it's clear to see whatever pace GB has found has really started to work in his favour. Tiamat Marduk and El Rey Guri still on those hard compound tyres. Maybe the medium still hanging on to some type of grip. Those rears would not be in a great position as Alex Gillen continues to fight himself way position after that. Up to P8 goes the Haas driver, but I want to get back to the topic about weather. See, I have a very handy little software in my back pocket that actually has a little handy thing called a weather forecast. It's a live weather forecast that tells me exactly with accuracy about what the upcoming weather will be. And I can tell you, with definitely no smile on my face, they're not lying. In the next 30 minutes, expect heavy rain.
Oh, wow, heavy, straight to heavy rain. So that's going to make things very, very important for two particular drivers, or two particular sets of drivers, El Rey Guri and GB68, but then also Nogueira and Unstopped Rob, because you need to be ahead of your teammate. If you box behind your teammate, you're going to lose out to them, as Tiamat Marduk once again tries to go for the overtake on El Rey Guri. It's wheel to wheel in towards turn 4. And I think he's just managed to back out of that with no damage or even collision between the two of them. So they got through that cleanly, just about. But yeah, it's about GB68 needs to get past El Rey Guri to have that priority and have that best chance of course, having the best pit stop and not being held up by your teammate. But the same for Nogueira and Unstopped Rob. Both of them need to try and be the lead driver into the pit lane, or you either got to wait an extra lap or go a lap early, which could cost you time anyway and lose you this cluster of cars, which they're so desperate to hold on to in this race. Alex Gillen still making inroads, just at the fastest lap of this race so far. and is closing in to the back of that guy Vince, taking out a huge chunk of time on the Red Bull drive. It's now 7.2 seconds, so watch that gap on your screens between those two, because I think it's only going to be a matter of time before he is on the back as Nogueira and Tom go wheel to wheel in towards turn 3, and here comes Nogueira once again as Tiamat Marduk overtakes Elray Guri for the lead. There's changes for position going on everywhere, and that is just what we love about F1 Creator Series.
It is, and it's always nice to see a nice competitive field with a lot of tight tussles for positions. Once again, we've seen this big fight between Elray Guri and Tiamat Marduk, and Tiamat Marduk making that double overtake a few laps ago.
Oh, no!
Oh, dearie me, and a 3-second time penalty goes towards Elray Guri. And that's going to completely change the aspect of how this may finish out. If Tiamat Marduk can keep a clean profile, have no penalties towards his name, Elray Guri is now on the back foot, and now he needs to consider his teammate here. Does Aston Martin want to work better in the favor for Elray Guri, or does GB68... Oh, I don't know. Does Aston Martin want to become a bit less selfless or more selfish? I don't know. It's for championship positions as well. 3-second time penalty isn't impossible to beat out, though. He just needs to get the deficit ahead of Ben. But Ben has clearly had the pace with him since the very beginning of this race so far. And actually, I want to correct myself. I may have said this for a bit more exaggeration. We have intermediate weather in 10 minutes of time.
You made me think it was just going to absolutely chuck it down out of nowhere, which would have been...
It's going to get to heavy weather.
It is going to get. That's exciting. I think for Elray Guri, it's even more important he stays ahead of GB68, because he can take GB68 out of this fight, and if GB68 loses time, which he will do, and potentially over 3 seconds from double stacking, then that's going to give him that buffer with the penalty. And he's going to also hope that Nogueira and Unstopped Rob pit on the same lap as well, because it gives him another buffer, which means he would realistically potentially only drop down to P4 in this race. And, you know, providing his championship rivals, which are Alex Gillen down there in P8. Of course, Tiamat Marduk is up at the front and fighting as the two swap positions once again at the front. It's not too much lost in terms of championship. Of course, if you win the race, it's 25. If you finish in 4th, you're still getting 16 points. So there is a lot of potential still there for Elray Guri to have a good race. But, you know, we're lap 30. He's got a 3-second time penalty. There's every chance that a lot of these other drivers can pick up those 3-second time penalties. Track limits are so hard around this circuit. And but there's also the potential for Elray Guri to pick up another penalty in this race, but that is something that he's going to want to be avoiding. I was saying about, look, watch those gaps further down the field. Alex Gillen is now 3 seconds off the back of that guy Vince. He is the fastest driver out on track at the moment, and he is really hunting them down. And I'm interested to see, when the rain comes down, if Alex Gillen can get close enough to this pack here. How close can Alex Gillen get to the back of Unstopped Rob, despite taking a pit stop, as he is now only 2 seconds off the back of that guy Vince? I'm sure he's going to be overtaking him within the next 2 laps.
So just looking at the last lap telemetry, it's currently Alex Gillen in the Haas with a 107.006, but they're about to cross the line. So it's a 106.981 across the line for Alex Gillen. For P7, the Red Bull of that guy Vince, and this will just be an interesting number, a 108.830. He's nearly 2 seconds faster than the Red Bull out in head. And once again, Tiamat Marduk doing this wheel-to-wheel battle. It's seeming like they're less working together now, and the Aston Martin and McLaren are starting to show a little bit more desperation with one another. They really want to fight for position, potentially. And now, if they're listening to the stream, maybe they have a better idea that rain is on the way, and so they just want to have more of a track position in their favor than potentially pulling away from other drivers. I don't know how confident they'll be in the wets here around Austria, but I don't know. It seems like they're fighting more for track position than working together. And GB68 just still hanging in there. 0.6 of a second, currently separating P3 to P2. Elray Guri still once again using a tactical DRS play to then wait for the second part of DRS here on the second straight of many straights here around Austria. And a nice little statistic for you is that we are still 6 times smaller than the Nürburgring Nordschleife, so a small track here in the Austrian hills, but still Elray Guri can't seem to get past Tiamat Marduk on this occasion. That 3-second time penalty will not be helping him, and that 2 seconds a lap faster has come well and truly effect for Alex Gillen as he goes up to P7. And if he beats out this, if he gets down from that 15.1 second deficit from P7 to P6, he's joined the front group of drivers. Alex Gillen has really started to bring back a race in his favour.
Yeah, let's really watch those timings now. This is the important one. Of course, catching that guy Vince is one thing. Catching to this lead pack is a completely different thing in its entirety. So let's watch those times tumble and see just exactly what Alex Gillen can do on that leading pack. It's down to 14 seconds already, so he's already taken out, I think, about a second of a lap just on this lap alone, but he needs to continue to do that and hope that the rain stays away from a little bit longer. In the chat, the prediction is 3 to 5 laps until we get rain, and you're seeing it already on your screen. And yes, we are on the onboards. Alex Gillen, there is rain falling, and this isn't what Alex Gillen needed. He got it all wrong there into turn 1, just about managed to save the car, and that unfortunately lost him a bit of time. And for him, he's going to be wanting that rain just to stay away slightly, but if it's getting to heavy rain very quickly, I can imagine we're going to be going to intermediate tyres in a lap or two, as he's already struggling with the rear end. So I suspect it's going to be maybe this lap. Eyes to the front, Tiamat Marduk, will he come into the box?
We are expecting 5 minutes to be full intermediate conditions. Right now the rain has begun, but in 5 minutes is where they expect it to be fully damp, wet conditions. Tiamat Marduk has decided to stay out. What about Alex Gillen? Right now he's a little too far away for us to tell if he's going to come into the pit lane, but the top 6 has stayed out. Maybe if Alex comes in, he could find a bit more of an advantage. But if you come in too early, you will only lose time out. You won't find any time, and it will be Alex Gillen who decides to stay out on this occasion. The track does seem a little too dry, but it is clear to see that the water will start to wash away the rubber that is set down, and a big overtake trying to be made by Tiamat Marduk on the outside line. Finally gets the exit, but it's almost neck and neck once again, 2 abreast on the back straight. But with rain continuing to trickle down here, they need to try and stay focused on circuit with the other drivers that surround them, but in their own heads, they need to be concentrating how they want to play this out, when they're going to box, what tire are they going to go for. Like I said before, in 30 minutes time still, it's going to be heavy wet conditions. So, are you going to start on the intermediates and then work your way up to going to the wet compound tires? Or are you going to gamble it all and take a big risk? It's really intriguing how they want to take this inside line. I believe these drivers are coming into the pits, and they are. Elroy Guri will lead it looks like the entire pack into the pit lane. Tom's in. GB68 is staying out, but you can really start to see the raindrops falling onto the tarmac. Oh, strategy is getting interesting, and this is starting to change the whole dynamic of Formula One here in Austria. Intermediates for all 4 drivers coming into the pit lane. Alex Gillen coming in as well. And unfortunately, his entire strategy revolving around those new mediums comes to a halt, and now his strategy and his gap will be extended by just a little bit more of a margin. So now we get to see who has the pace in these intermediate tires. Like I said, it changes the dynamic. Now it's about how much car control you have. Now it's about consistency. DRS is still active for the time being, but it will be shut off very soon. So you need to take full advantage of every opportunity you'll get, because once you're in the wet conditions, things become very limited very fast.
Yeah, you need to get this overtake done, because there will be no DRS. It'll be harder to make those overtakes later on in this race. It was important for Nogueira and GB68 to stay out, although Nogueira has overtaken GB68. I think he's really struggling in these conditions. As the track is falling away from these two, Nogueira moved up into the lead of the race. Both drivers into the pits at the moment. I think they are most likely going to lose out to the other drivers who are coming around the track now. Elroy Guri rounds the final corner on those intermediate tyres, and his teammate is still in the box. Unfortunately, there was nothing really that those guys could do, and this 6-horse race is kind of now adapted into a 3-horse race. It's Elroy Guri, it's Tiamat Marduk, and it's Tom, because Unstopped Rob has dropped away slightly as well. DRS has been disabled, and back of the grid, further down the grid, GB68 comes out in P6. So the man who's on pole position in that fight is going to be really, really frustrated with this change. But now it all depends on setup. What were these drivers doing at the start of this race? Were they looking more towards rain? But remember that once you do your setup for the sprint race, you cannot change it for the main race. So regardless of whether because they wouldn't have seen the rain for what the weather is doing when they went into the sprint race, they would not have known that rain was on the way for the main race. So that is really going to change things, whether all the drivers are on dry or maybe some drivers just took a gamble, thought, you know what? I think there is a great chance that it is going to rain in the race. So I'm going to go for a middle ground strategy. There's a yellow flag. I believe that is Patterson, who's had an issue. Yeah, Patterson sadly having a race to forget, although he did jump in very last minute. So to be on pace, when you don't drive the F1 cars, you drive a lot more the F2 cars, is always going to be difficult with this very competitive field. But now it's up to El Guri to try and drive away and also try and break that 3-second time penalty that he does have. He'll be happy to know that the driver in third also has a 3-second time penalty, and the driver in fourth also has a 3-second time penalty. So realistically, at the moment, he's only losing out to one of his championship rivals, Team at Marduk, and would only lose 5 points in that race. But we're looking to try and hold this on. We will go to full wet conditions. The intermediates actually work quite well in the full wet conditions, providing you get them up to the right temperature. So they're not good for race starts. That's what we saw in Canada. The drivers on the intermediates did really struggle, but once they are up to temperature, the intermediates work a lot better than the full wet tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see if any drivers do take that risk on the wets. If there's a safety car, it's probably going to be the right call. If there's no safety car, it's probably best to stay on the intermediates.
I don't know what Austria has done, but it started raining at my house here in Australia. So thank you, Austria. Big appreciation for that.
Same name, Austria, Australia. You know, it's easy to get confused.
There you go. Just add in the L and I, and we've got it right. But I will say this: we are.
Alex Gillen's
yes,
been removed from the session.
About that one, I don't know what may have happened there, but hopefully we can get him back in as soon as possible. But continuing right out the front, El Guri has started to pull out by nearly a second there, and you're obviously correct about your point earlier. Parc Ferme from the sprint all the way to this race now, and there wouldn't be any type of awareness of there being rain. I mean, I looked up the weather forecast for Austria. It didn't seem like it was going to rain today, but the rain has struck, and I can only assume a few drivers would be struggling on their setup, and any driver that would be changing their setup for this race obviously would be penalized later on. But yeah, no, it's clear to see Team at Marduk maybe just struggling a little bit now. 1 second being separated. Obviously, there is no DRS, but staying inside 1 second is pretty important either way, imperative even. You just need to try and keep consistency, and that's the number one thing I've always said about wet conditions. It becomes about consistency. It becomes about momentum. When you have momentum out of a corner compared to someone else who may have struggled, who may have gone throttle a little bit too early, you have the advantage for the remainder of that straight before the next upcoming corner. And it's just about keeping that momentum and keeping that consistency and keeping that pace. Now that there's no DRS and you can only solely rely on the hybrid, it becomes a different game. And Matty D13,
yeah, Matty D13 retiring in the pit lane. I think after the collision with M Sky Z forcing him to make a pit stop, I think he has decided that he no longer wants to take any part in this session, as you have been removed from the session. Yes, I have. 1 second, everybody in the chat. I'm just going to invite JP back into the session, and then we will get back on with the proceedings. So give us a memento. There you go. There's your invite. And let's get back on with the action. Tom, actually, I would say, is getting closer to Tiamat Marduk than Tiamat Marduk is getting to El Guri. The gap now 1 second. So Tom actually on the back of Tiamat Marduk at this stage, maybe showcasing that he has a setup more fine-tuned to the wet weather than Tiamat Marduk does, which was strange in a way because Tiamat Marduk was probably one of the best drivers in the wet last time around at Spain. It's maybe suggesting that we are going back towards dry conditions. I mean, you've got the weather report, so you'll be able to give us a better indication of whether we're going to go to dry. As Patterson, another driver who has decided that enough is enough. He's a lap down now and thinks, you know what, we're not going to get back in this race, and has decided to retire in the pit lane as well. So we've lost Patterson, Matty D, and M Sky Z from this race so far. Tom 97 not really having a great race at this point, right down at the back of the field. Not too sure if he's in AI mode still. I don't remember seeing him come back into the session. But update on Alex Gillen, what happened to him. his game was lagging and decided to restart. So that is why Alex Gillen left the lobby and is now back. You all good? You in the lobby now? Can you see?
Loading complete, but I'm at a black screen. Nearly there.
We will wait until JP is back. And he's back. He's back in. So what have you missed? El Guri has extended his lead to 1.2 seconds. And Tom is still looking very close to the back of Team at Marduk. Meanwhile, the two Mercedes are still close together as well. And other than that, very separate gaps amongst the field. No real other battles going on in these wet conditions.
I knew the moment we were getting into wet conditions, it was immediately going to become more strategy-based. I mean, as soon as anyone came into the pit lane, it was going to become more strategy-based, and who could find more consistency and more pace on their new tires, and that was Alex Gillen. He was the shining light as an example of that. But it's also clear to see, now that we're in these wet conditions, I mean, you can kind of pick and point the drivers who have the pace in wets and who doesn't. Alex Gillen is not one of the drivers with pace. 16.7, now 16.9 seconds away from P6 of GB68, and in his entire strategy, his entire plan was around a dry strategy. It was around the slick compound tires and the mediums, and unfortunately it fell away from him as the rain started to pour down. It is really started to dampen around this circuit. I can actually get my live telemetry back up as well, so I'll get you the weather forecast in a moment. But yeah, no, it's clearly not worked in his favor. It's now 17 seconds separating Alex Gillen.
Yeah, he's still not in the lobby. He's still not in the session. He hasn't come back yet. He had to restart everything, and he's still struggling. Yeah. So not in. An update on Tom 97. He had a power cut that his whole area blacked out. So unfortunately, we will not have Tom 97 returning unless all that's fixed right at the end. But for now, Tombot is trundling his way around the order. I don't know if he's a lap down yet. Not quite, but those drivers are coming as Alex Gillen is getting himself back into the lobby, and he is loading in now. There he is. So Alex Gillen, 17 seconds down, will be looking for a safety car in this race to get him back in the mix. And if any driver can get a safety car, it's Alex Gillen. Alex Gillen is the one who will get a safety car, as you are once again removed. And
I'm gonna do an Alex Gillen.
You do an Alex Gillen. You restart, and I will get you back in as soon as we possibly can. Tom, still on the back of El Guri at the moment. Do you reckon that there's a higher chance of Tom from getting Team at Marduk? Because I feel like he could. I feel like Tom is our best bet at the moment of an overtake in these wet conditions.
From that 30 seconds I was in the session, I did see some solid pace starting to form from the Alpine. I mean, it's clear to see he may actually be better suited for wetter conditions. We'll have to wait and see how it continues to progress itself. But no, Tom does seem to be finding a bit more comfort in wetter conditions compared to maybe someone like Tiamat Marduk or El Guri out in the Aston Martin in P1. So it's going to be intriguing how it continues to form and shape, and how last laps continue to show the pace for every single one of these drivers. The one thing that's great about treaded tires, and also for groove tires, they last a lifetime compared to the slick compound tires. They have that life. They have areas where they divot in. So now there's areas where air can get into a temperature, can be in a certain window for longer periods of time. It's also why we see in a lot of endurance racing treaded tires is used. But we also see that they use Michelin slicks, and that lasts a lifetime as well. Either way, I am awaiting an invite, if that's from you or someone else, but hopefully this restart of the game has worked out, not only for me, but also for Alex Gillen, who seems to be having similar issues, and hopefully we can get it all sorted out and continue with some fantastic racing on display.
Yeah, a few battles sort of going on in this race at the moment. F1 Scott just picked up a 3-second time penalty. Kalen also on the back of Infratic, so those two fighting. And El Guri is escaping away from Team Marduk. Gap now 2 seconds. So I think El Guri, if the weather still stays like this and it doesn't dry up by the end, he's got a great opportunity to take this race win still, despite getting the penalty. Our closest battle really is probably this one. Big Good, F1 Scott and Punju all fighting for 3, 2 and 1 point in this race. There's that guy Vince on the back of Alex Gillen, but now he is back in the lobby. I think Alex Gillen will start to drive away from him right now. But I think this wet conditions kind of, I don't want to say ruined this race because there's still a lot of time to go, but it's halted our overtakes, and it's made it a lot more difficult for these drivers to get past each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I eventually, by the time I can finally see a driver, and I'm back again, lap 44 of 71, and on board with Infratic. But no, I agree. It's raining conditions always just adds a certain pressure to these drivers, especially if they don't feel confident in these conditions. They see rain and maybe there's a bit more nervousness.
Might get an overtake though, down in P15.
Yeah, I am seeing that as well.
No, never mind.
And listen, it comes back to the point I'm making before. It's all about momentum and consistency and showing that pace. It's really difficult to make moves in wetter conditions, especially in these new regulation Formula One cars, and especially with the new handling model that we here have in F1 24. I mean, the game's been out for nearly a month, but it's still a lot of time for drivers to get a better idea of how the handling model works, and I don't think every driver is going to have a full understanding of it yet. I mean, I think a perfect example would be Skyzy, who unfortunately has DNF'd in P20, but certain aspects of this can become quite tricky, and in the rain, it still seems like Tom's cutting down some time. Oh,
sorry, Punju had a bit of a slide.
Oh, you scared me, I was like, oh, big yellow flag, we're getting a safety car, it's the end of the world.
I was hopeful,
no,
I was hopeful.
The old for the slides.
Old reliable safety car Punju, unable to put it in a wall yet.
But yeah, no, Tom in P3 is cutting down solid amount of time here, 7/10 off Team Mitmardik in P2. McLaren and Alpine still sliding around on the circuit, clearly a setup that's not meant for wet conditions, but it does seem to be pouring quite hard now. You can start to see quite vivid reflections from light and from whatever sunlight we are producing, even though we are covered in cloud at the moment. It is clear to see that Austria is really starting to pour itself down with the rain. But yeah, either way, Tom just signed a trail behind the McLaren of Team Mitmardik, and obviously a few drivers starting to catch up to one another. But yeah, the rain is rewarding a few and really starting to punish others, and it's making it really tricky, and strategy is not going to be helpful for a lot of these drivers. And yeah, it's just got to a point where we're in a bit of a stalemate,
Yeah.
When we have conditions like this, when you start the race in slick and dry conditions, you have an entire plan in your head, you have an entire strategy that you're trying to play out and display, and then wet conditions hit and your entire strategy gets thrown out the window so you can continue to be competitive on grooved tires like the intermediates are. It makes things really difficult at points, and in the case for Alex Gillen or to El Rey Guri, it may work in their favor, it may not work in their favor. So it is getting really tricky at the moment. Tom, I'll be honest, is looking really impressive right now. Only 3/10 off the McLaren of Team Mitmardik, and we may be finally seeing a move that would be sized up. But like I said, momentum is everything. You need to carry as much as possible, and he needs to show that confidence right about now.
Yeah, Ben was doing quite a few laps of just staying at 2 seconds to El Rey Guri, and then in that last lap has dropped off 6/10 now to the Aston Martin driver. That buffer with the penalty has nearly been achieved by the Aston Martin driver, and that's just allowing Team Mitmardik to fall into the clutches of the Alpine of Tom. My heart goes out to GB68 though, because a great qualifying performance, an incredible lap to put himself right at the front, but again, Absolutely. Just like last week, it's evident that GB68 is struggling in these wet conditions. We got that guy Vince going into the box, and I presume that is for wet tires.
And yes, it is.
There's an AI bot. Tom97 bot is also into the bits for a set of wet tires, and I'm not sure whether that's going to be the right call for that guy Vince. As we said earlier, the intermediates do work well, but if they lose tire temperature, that is when the wets will start to perform, as that guy Vince is going to get an overtake very quickly, this time on Infratic, straight out of the pit lane. The wet tyres working very well immediately. And are we going to count that as an overtake? Because they were technically side by side out of the pit lane, but I'm going to count it, okay? I know we're clutching at straws there, but I feel like we've got to count that, as into the box, I think, comes Adam Sarnason as well. So some of these drivers just taking a gamble. And do you know what? Talk about GB68. If I was him, I'd go for it, because at the moment, in the intermediate conditions, if it's not going to dry up, you've just got to go for it. You've got to go for those wet tyres, because he is struggling in these conditions. And if the wets are just working slightly better than the inters, it could be his best chance of maybe clawing back this race.
No, absolutely. And, I mean, it seems to be working in the favour of that guy Vince. Already 6/10 separating Infratic to the Red Bull driver. Now this could be well and truly off driver pace alone, but I mean, it all comes down to the traction and grip that you feel. You know, a driver needs to feel confident if he wants to make an overtake. He re-overtook the Ferrari that overtook him out of the exit of the pit exit that the Red Bull faced. But I mean, it looks like he's quite confident at the moment. He's getting the throttle down in quite a sufficient amount of time.
We've got a battle. F1 Scott and Punju. Punju just overtook F1 Scott into the final corner. I just caught it on the broadcast last minute, and they were about to go side by side. I think we just had a battle, and I think we both missed it.
I think we're so desperate for fights, and we're just looking at gaps just endlessly. We're just like, please give us something. Alpine of Tom did look like he was really starting to size up and move on Team Marduk. It got down to 3.5 tenths, but unfortunately has started to increase once again. But you know, this is what happens in wet conditions. Things slow down. I said this, once that DRS shuts off, you need to take in every opportunity you get, because it may be your final opportunity of making an overtake. In a place like Austria as well, it's such a small circuit, and with so many straights, if you don't have a a setup that works both on, you know, straights, but also considering the downforce, so you have still some type of traction in wetter conditions, it becomes really tricky for you. And for a lot of drivers, that has started become that case. I mean, Tiamat Marduk was in a heated fight with El Reguri for majority of the beginning of this race, at least for the first stint of racing, and then it started to pour down, and Tiamat Marduk was still kind of there, and he lost time, and now it's at 3.6 seconds, and Tom once again applying pressure, but it always seems to be around the first sector that Tiamat Marduk gains a bit of more time back at him. And I also just wanted to monitor how the wet compound tyres were doing for that guy Vince. So, his last lap, a 1:15.780. El Reguri, he won on the intermediates, a 1:14.918.
Oh, Tom's going for the overtake here on Teammate Marduk.
Oh, yes,
he is. Sorry to cut you off there. Tom is going for the overtake around the outside into turn 3. And finally, after being so patient for Tom in the Alpine, he finally gets past Tiamat Marduk, and now needs to try and drive away, utilize that pace advantage that he seems to have over the McLaren to drive away and break that 3 seconds, just like El Reguri has done, and looks comfortable for the race win. Sorry, go back to your point. My bad.
Yeah, no, so what I was saying before, I wanted to monitor the wet compound tyres that Dakar Vince was on. I also looked at Adam Sanderson just to get a better idea. Adam Sanderson, I'm not going to, you know, break around the point here. He's not really competitive on those wets. P10, Red Bull, 1:15.471 his last lap time. El Reguri, a 1:14.918. Tom with a 1:15.355. So, if anything, intermediates are pretty much equal, at least averaging a pretty equal time to those wet compound tyres. They're not exactly performing better than the intermediates. I think the only thing that those wets would be doing is just, you know, supplying slightly more traction because they're newer, you know, tyres. They have better tread. It's not grinding away. The rubber is still there. And I think that's the only real benefit you'd be seeing. And I think the intermediates are still there fighting just as well as you mentioned before. Once you get them up to temperature and once you have them in the window, as long as the grooves are still there in the tyre, you can find all the traction in the world, just like how you would in those wet compound tyres. On stop, Rob 5/10 off Nogueira in P4. And Tiamat Marduk hasn't really left the side of Tom at the moment. 4/10 separating and only 4.3 seconds separating Tom to El Reguri. He is bringing, you know, the gap down a little bit, but it's 4 seconds at the moment on the dot, and I don't really know if he's going to be able to close down that gap in time, but we've got plenty of laps remaining, 20 to be exact, 5.2 seconds slower than his previous sector time, though he is well and truly fighting away with Team Marduk as he continues to try and close out that gap to at least a second, because that's where momentum and a slipstream and draft starts to fade away from a driver and gives a better opportunity for someone like Tom in the Alpine to try and pull away at the moment. But yeah, things are slowing down a little bit again, waiting for another opportunities for the commentators and for the viewers to fulfill ourselves. But I think right now it's just slowing down, show consistency, just show, you know, just some type of a lack of lapse of judgment, I think, more than anything else. Just don't make mistakes in the wet conditions. Keep it clean, keep it consistent, and you will find positives out of it. And for someone like Tom, he's done that. He's kept it consistent. He's had the pace. He's not made mistakes. He got up to P2. But Tiamat Marduk, I'm sure, will be desperate at this point to get back up into the P2 position and really try and stay in the fight for the podiums. Now, let's not also forget that Tom has a penalty to his name. So does El Reguri. Now, obviously, El Ray's pulled away to a point where it won't affect affect him as much because it's 5.2 seconds for a penalty that's only 3 seconds to his name. But if Tom can pull away and bring himself closer, we could have a really cool final, lap battle in a instance with Tom and El Reguiri. I know I'm kind of pushing it a little bit, but it would be cool to see something like that.
Yeah, El Reguiri just driving away though from Tom. He made a big mistake on the previous lap into the final corner. So watch him go through. Will he slide through there once again? No, a lot more controlled this time around. Teammate Marduk though, doing what he needs to do. Just stay on the back of Tom, gain from the penalty, and that's exactly what Unstopped Rob is doing as well in this race. Unstopped Rob, no need to fight his teammate. If he fights his teammate, that pulls them back to GB68, and then he loses out that position from the 3 seconds. So for him, the best decision he can make is stay behind his teammate and just finish in P5. The same thing is going on further down the grid with Purya. Purya had that 5-place grid penalty from qualifying. He did qualify just within the top 10, but he did get that 5-place grid penalty. He's now recovered back to P9. Is on the back of Zafso, but unable to break through and really close in to go for that overtake. But talking of someone on wet tyres, that guy Vince closing up the gap now. 6 seconds. It's not coming down massively, and it's not like he's going to be there in a couple of laps. But if this race continues to go, I think that guy Vince could be on the back of the likes of Purya and Zafso come the end of it and fighting for P8, which was where he was after he boxed from the Inters. So that's really got to be his goal in this race, to finish in P8 behind Alex Gillen. Otherwise, it was not worth going to the wet tyres.
No, 100%. And I'm starting to notice something as well. Nogueira down to 3.1 seconds the team at Marduk. Before it was around 3.5, 3.6. So maybe it's also starting to be a few more mistakes. I did see a big slide out of the exit of turn 7 for the McLaren driver. Still only 8 tenths off Tom, but maybe Nogueira may be feeling a little confident. As I say that, goes wide out of the exit of turn 1. His teammate only 4 tenths off. I don't think Mercedes planning to do any type of swap, but they are getting dangerously close to one another. Obviously, the invisible and fake team principal will be hoping for the best for these two drivers and hoping for nothing to end up going wrong. But right now, Unstopped Rob just staying right behind the teammate of Nogueira and just maybe getting a bit more of a draft and slipstream, just keeping close to him so they can both get some type of benefit out of this, as the McLaren of Be Good with a 3-second time penalty to his name. I wanted to have another look at the weather forecast to see if anything may clear up. And obviously we have less than 20 laps remaining, and there is 30 minutes of a deficit, 15 minutes until rain stops, but it's 30 minutes until we get back into sunny conditions.
So no sign of any immediate change of the weather at the moment. Teammate Marduk still holding on to the back, and he'll be a driver who is hoping for it to dry up, for it to go back to dry conditions, because you know, he was very, very quick in the dry, quicker than Tom, arguably, you could say. And now, since we've switched over to these wetter conditions, El Rey's dipped. He's driven away from this too, and he's, you know, certifying and cementing himself as the race winner potentially for today, unless anything atrocious happens in this race. Tom as well, looking good for a podium. Don't quite think he's going to finish in P3 because teammate Marduk's still tucked up on the back of him, and Nogueira is going to be a driver who's going to have to really try and push and try and break that 3-second deficit and try and get within that penalty window. As Purya, further down the field, looks for an opportunity on Zafso, drives into the back of the Alpine driver of Zafso, and we could potentially be getting another overtake in these wet conditions. Purya looking aggressive now on the back of the Alpine driver. Zafso wide of the apex and wide at the corner. That's going to allow the RB to have a great run out of turn 1 as Biggood and Punju look like they're fighting further down the field. But for now, it is Purya looking to the right-hand side, but Zafso defends that perfectly. Just put his car on the inside as Biggood has retired from this race, and that is in the pit lane. That's in the pit lane. I was surprised. I thought, you know, he's in the points. Why is he doing that? I'm really actually surprised by that decision. I don't know if Biggood knows that you can score points in P15.
Yeah, I'm convoluted by that point as well. But as we say that, have a look at Purya. Look at V-Carb in P9. big slide there, gets on the throttle a little too early. Clearly excited by the moment. He could potentially see himself making a move. 3-second time penalty for Alex Gillen in the Haas, and B-Carb trying to look for any type of opportunity against the Alpine of Zafso, his teammate in P2. But Zafso right now struggling to find the traction and grip necessary to stay ahead of Purya. Can P9 find the opportunity he's been looking for as they continue into the final corner? We've been waiting momentously for some type of action on the circuit. He's using his battery, he's using his pace, but nothing. Going into turn 1, V-Carb still right on the rear end, more momentum, has the pace. Is this finally the opportunity we were waiting for? Outside line, flat to the floor, pedal to the metal, pushing it all the way to nearly 300 kilometers per hour. Looks for the rotation of the car, turning in early, slight contact to the Alpine, more contact made, and a big kick on the rear for Purya. Zafso still stays out ahead, but is there another opportunity? Going down to the next corner, down towards turn 4, no, but the Alpine makes a slight mistake, and the V-Carb is still right there. Tiamat Marduk in the background of it all. McLaren back up to P2, sending a move down the inside and gets it stuck in stone out of the exit of turn 3. Once again, as we go a little bit further down, Purya is still there chasing down the Alpine, but can't seem to get it done. Tom back down to P3, and Tiamat Marduk maybe finding a second stint of hope, a second stint of potentially pace on his side. 7.5 separate. I don't know, it just doesn't seem in his favor, but Tiamat Marduk trying to take P2 in his favor. He doesn't even need to overtake Tom. He can rely on penalties, but he wants it on circuit for bragging rights more than anything else. That would be the mentality of Ben if I was in his shoes, but right now you can see Purya still right there to Savso, but it's just not close enough in these wet conditions. At least we got some action on circuit, huh?
That was a good battle between Purya and Zafso. Nice clean racing between the two of them. Purya sadly just losing the rear end out of turn 3, but he's going to get another opportunity now. Moves to the outside through turn 4. Can he go the long way around the corner? Zafso tucks it on the inside. He keeps it tight. We have the shorter run through turn 5, setting up turn 6, and it's Purya who has to hold off once again. It just looks like Zafso has much better traction out the corner and then just parks it on the apex, and Purya has nowhere to go in this race. And Purya again just having to be patient. The two battles forming out on track. It's Purya and Zafso. It's Tiamat Marduk and Tom. But then further down, we've also got this three-way that's going on between that guy Vince, who's on the wet tyres, Intratix, who's on the wets, and Kalon, who's on the intermediates. Having a little look up the inside through the final corner, unable to find a way through there. And that battling that's been happening between Tiamat Marduk and Tom has let in a certain Mercedes driver within the 3-second time penalty window of the Alpine driver. So it's Nogueira, who got his first ever podium last time around at Spain, could be looking for another one here.
We're only 10 minutes away from the race, from the rain concluding. Could that potentially be an opening for some type of strategy decision? I don't know. The track will still be damp, but it's not completely out of consideration. We still have, 11 laps remaining? 12 laps for that matter? So it's not exactly impossible that, something may happen, but you're right. You can see Infratic on the outside line, Ferrari against the Red Bull, Red Bull on the inside line, Ferrari having to back out of it, and Kylon right there behind. Can the Ferrari make it stick in stone? Well, he's now getting pressure from the Williams behind as well, and it is a three-way battle here in the wet conditions at the Red Bull Ring, here in the Austrian Alps. Who can get the absolute maximum of it? Dat guy Vince still on top. Alex Gillen coming into the pit lane on a fresh set of intermediate tyres. And I can only assume 34 seconds down, he may be going for some type of personal improvement. I mean, you're definitely not taking fastest lap, but I don't know the whole point behind it, maybe just feeling uncomfortable on his tyres, but either way, that guy Vince now getting pressured by the Ferrari, the Scuderia and the prancing horses, prancing upwards and onwards, up to another position, getting the rotation, and up towards P10. Kylon still got a nose in to the rear right tyre. Can't seem to get it done, and the Williams having to back out of it momentarily, but will he send it? It looks like he's going to think about it. Oh, it's been a late break. But no, just inside. Ferrari does dive late, just avoiding the gravel. That guy Vince can't close in. And Kylon is still right on the verge of potentially overtaking on the outside line. Williams really risking it all. Can't seem to get it paid off. And really trying for any opportunity, using the wet line towards his advantage. Williams again sneaking a nose in. Now it's will to will, and now it's an overtake in Red Bull, looking to come into the pit lane, follows the pit line, and does exactly that, looking potentially to switch from those wet compound tyres. It hasn't paid off for the Red Bull. It looks like Kylon now looking upwards and onwards towards Infratic. Does Ferrari still have the advantage? However, a penalty is still towards the Scuderia's name.
Yeah, I think that was the right call from that guy Vince. The wet tyres just really not working. Bad call initially, and to go onto those wets as we have seen. And for Alex Gillen, why not? You know, you're not catching up to the drivers in front. You've got a free pit stop to your name. Go for it. Go for the new set of intermediates. See if you can catch up and maybe try and get GB68, or even, you know, just have a bit of a race in this. Zafso and Perya still going head to toe at the moment, very, very close to one another. I'm looking out for Nogueira though, because he closed up a massive gap to Tom and Tiamat Marduk in these wet conditions. Potentially another driver who has the car better set up towards these wet conditions and will be looking to push in this race with these two. It's very close up at the front. The battle for second is on, and it's realistically only between Tiamat Marduk and Nogueira, because Tom does have that 3-second time penalty. But you'll be looking at Unstopped Rob as well. If Nogueira can get past the Alpine, then we have Unstopped Rob, who is free to battle. And here goes Nogueira. Great drive out of the double right-handers, or the double left. And Tom just defends that nicely. And Nogueira, you know, patient. No need to be desperate. No need to go for an overtake just yet, because he doesn't want to lose the back of Tiamat Marduk.
No, absolutely not. Mercedes is there, though. He's thinking about it, but no. It's about confidence and desperation. My point throughout the entirety of these last 2 days in F2 and F1. And right now it's about Nogueira just staying just behind him and taking an opportunity to bring himself closer towards the McLaren. But Mercedes not wasting time. Inside line, he is going to break well and truly late. Does kick out the rear a little bit from front locking. Tries to get the throttle down. And in a moment's notice, Tom just pulling away a little bit further due to the outside line. But another Mercedes potentially thinking about joining in the fight a little bit more. Mercedes sending it down again. Maybe this isn't confidence, this is desperation. Mercedes once again looking for it. Outside line well and truly in his favor. Looks to try and use it, but the Alpine parking it right on the apex. Can't get past him, and the Mercedes still trying to bring himself closer to potentially making a move on Tom. Maybe he doesn't see an overtake on Tiamat Marduk. Maybe he does, but he doesn't want to waste time behind Tom. Either way, Mercedes is pushing the limit on what is possible. Only 17% in terms of battery for Tom remaining, 30% for the Mercedes of Nogueira. He has the advantage in terms of the electric motors for the hybrid system compared to Tom and the Alpine. It's just a question on when he can stick it in stone. The Mercedes on the inside line. No time wasting anymore. He's pulled the trigger. He's shot it. And it's looking to go in the favor for the Mercedes down the inside as they continue to abreast through every corner and straight. But Mercedes still looking to get the job done and does exactly that. So towards the position of Nogueira, but it's still there. Alpine fighting away with everything he's got onto the AstroTurf. Once again squeezed out. Unstopped Rob has been able to join the fight a little bit more. He's right on the rear diffuser of the Alpine. Can he get an opportunity is a whole different question. Close, really close racing. Inside 2/10, 1/10 of one another. Really starting to shut down the gaps with each other.
Great battle there between Tom and Nogueira. Nogueira now moving up into third place and hunting down the McLaren of TM at Mardy. Bit of a mistake there from Unstop Rob. He's been brought into this battle. These two fighting for position, Tom and Unstop Rob. Of course, they both have 3 seconds of time penalties. But from one Tom to another, Tom 97 has been Tombot for most of this race, from about lap 4 or lap 5. But I can tell you that Tom 97 is back in the car. He is now driving once again. He's put on a new set of intermediate tyres, and he's in P16. Points are awarded all the way down to P15 in the Creator Series, and he has no penalties. Adam Sanderson has 9 seconds of penalties to his name, and also is on wet tyres. So Tom 97 is going to catch up to him, potentially overtake him, and despite being an AI for most of this race, might still come away with a single point. And if he wins the championship by 1 point, he will put it down to his dedication coming back into this race. Or who knows? If a safety car comes out in this race, then maybe, just maybe, Tom 97 could be saved. He is a lap down by El Rey Guri, but can easily get past one driver if a safety car does come out. So, yeah, Tom 97 back in this race, and be interesting to see what he can do. Back up at the front, El Rey Guri is leading the way, 10 seconds now to TM at Marduk, but Nogueira is back within the 1 second of the car ahead. Now, no DRS, of course, in these conditions, as the back mark of a Williams is getting out of the way. But Nogueira is going to have a great opportunity to maybe look at second position in this race.
No, absolutely. Tiamat Marduk still in P2, but he's starting to be threatened a little bit by the Mercedes. The back marker getting all in the way of the team from Brackley. And I wonder how Nogueira will see that one in P3 now, but 1 second separated. And due to that back marker, it's put him just a little bit further down. It's clear that the pace is on the side for Nogueira, but does that just insinuate a potential loss in time that could really help Tiamat Marduk? It's lap 65 of 71. The rain still pouring down, but apparently it's coming to a halt very, very soon. It's way too late for slick conditions, but right now Tiamat Marduk just needs to defend and try and hold on to his position for dear life. 8 tenths separating it, and it's more like a ticking time bomb. The time continues to come down every single corner they rotate through. Every single time they apply that throttle, oodling around to keep stability in the car, to not kick out the rear. Every time they apply the brakes to make sure they don't lock up any of their tires, causing a front lock up, kicking out the rear. They're really trying to push it and keep their concentration all the way to the checkered flag. It looks like it's already job done for El Rey Guri, but for Tiamat Marduk, it is still anyone's game for P2. He really needs to try and keep it all together for the final couple of laps here. Lap 66 to 71. 5 laps remaining. Tiamat Marduk has a lot of work to do.
Cheeky overtake from that guy Vince, who is a lap down, utilised the leaders to get past Punju, and is now trying to unlap himself. He got past Unstop Rob, and is trying to get past Tom at the moment. I think he just made slight contact. He's now going on the inside, down in towards the left-hander. Tom's going to be like, what is this guy doing? He's a lap down. Why is he fighting me? And that is going to allow Unstop Rob the opportunity to move up in a 4th position. That guy Vince getting past Tom there has just cost him P4 in this race, and he's going to be absolutely fuming with that. And you're rightly saying Tom is into the box. It doesn't look like it's raining anymore. Gets the car slowed down, and he's got to be coming into the box for a set of soft tyres. Now, there's not a lot of time left in this session. Like, for soft tyres in this race, is it going to be enough time for Tom to catch up 20 seconds? No. Only time will tell. If he does, this will be the ultimate strategy in this race. Let's see what we can do. Tom 97, though, it back up into the points, into P15. I don't think he'll make any more inroads in this race, but at least he will have a point to his name at the moment.
The sun has a glare to it. It is out. It is leaving the cloud cover. We are back in dry conditions, and Tom has come to the soft compound
Zafso
tires.
Also on the softs. Alpine, both Alpines.
Yeah, but you're right. Both Alpines. Zafso as well. Oh, kick. Making a mistake, debris there, but doesn't look like it's going to be a VSC or safety car. And unfortunately, that is F1 Scott. That does go into a barrier. I'm sure he's still chucking away. He's such a positive guy. But yeah, that guy, Vince, just looking to make a overtake or two as Infratic in the Ferrari coming in and soft compound tyres. And you're right, Nogueira up to P2. Mercedes up into another position. Tiamat Marduk tried defending it for the life of him. It's dry conditions, and we only have to wonder how those intermediates perform against the soft compound tyres. But at least in the case for the Mercedes, the team from Brackley, they hold on a little bit longer. But for how much longer? McLaren on the outside line. He's been holding on for that P2 for so long. He does not want to let it go out of reach. And McLaren just starting to lose more and more time. It's fading away, and the McLaren will continue to push all the way to the checkered flag, but Mercedes has it for the time being. It comes down to mistakes and errors. 17.7 seconds on the soft compound tyres. There's not enough time being made. We are on a complete green circuit. There's no rubber, and we have DRS. This will not help Tom's causes, because now look at, consider Tiamat Marduk. Elray Guri's coming into the pit lane. Now, P1 coming into the pit lane. He's going to gamble it all on a fresh set of tyres. And now you can also see a few more drivers coming in near the back of the field. Nogueira is going to take the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. Tiamat Marduk is going to follow in pursuit on funny number 69, lap 69 of 71. Oh, this has just changed the complete perspective of the entire race.
That's got to be a huge blunder from Elray Guri. You know, right behind now, a lot of lap cars. He's got to try and get through this traffic. Yes, okay, the soft tyres are going to work better, but can he catch up that gap? I mean, it's 5 seconds. I think he's going to have a great chance to overtake them at the end, but then he's got to get a 3-second gap. And yes, Tiamat Marduk takes the lead of the race of the Austrian Grand Prix, but these two need to not squabble. They need to work together for the last few laps and then put up a blockade to stop Elray Guri from coming through. Elray Guri has that 3-second time penalty to his name, but how is Tom doing? Still 14 seconds. No, he's right on the back of them. He's very, very close. He can almost see them in the distance, but first, he's going to need to try and get past this back mark, who is just not getting out of the way. And they're right on the apex in the corner. That's a big hold up, but it's not holding up enough, as Infratic gets another 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings as Elray Guri now goes on the charge. Let's watch him as Paya. The bad luck continues for the Frenchman. He's just been kicked out of the session with only 2 laps to go. So it's up to Payabot to try and bring it home. But I suspect the AI is probably going to put him into the box. And now for Elray Guri, he can see them in the distance. He can see the other drivers in front of him. His rivals, he needs to get past them and then break away by 3 seconds.
The racing has been simply incredible from start to finish. On the penultimate lap of racing, lap 70 of 71, Elray Guri gets up to P3. Is it a ticking time bomb? Is there no match for the soft compound tyres? Was it looking so good, yet so far blue flags are nearly in the way? The Red Bull just diffusing a potential opportunity for an overtake before the final lap. How can Tiamat Marduk hold on? He needs to get past Nogueira. Doesn't look like he'll have a single problem with that. Lap 71 of 71. It is the final lap of racing. Elray Guri with the fastest lap of the entire race. A 105.693. And the Aston Martin is going to bring it all the way to the final lap of racing. On the 3rd corner, they're going to go up to the top of the hill. Elray Guri gets the rotation. He's back up into P1. And it's simply fantastic racing on display. Tiamat Marduk is going to keep fighting for P2. The McLaren still in close contention, locking the front wheels. Nogueira still right there in P2. The Mercedes on the outside. McLaren on the inside. Ben pushing it to the limits, and McLaren still there. It is now P2 for Tiamat Marduk, but all the way out in front, it's Elray Guri, who may still not win this race.
The 3-second penalty, can he do it?
3-second time penalty. Is it going to be Ben? Is it going to be the Aston Martin? Across the line, 2.8, 2.9, 3 seconds. Elray Guri wins the Austrian Grand Prix. Holy moly, what a way to get it done. 1/10 is the deficit. and Ben will be kicking himself so close to winning, yet so far. And your championship leader scores another 26 points. No, it is 25. Adam Sanderson at the nick of time, P16, takes it away from him, a 104.946. But El Rey Guri still getting it done in simply fantastic fashion.
Still
My
potential.
oh my, what a race.
Still potential for Alex Gillen, though, to take away the fastest lap. He's on soft tyres as well, coming through the last couple of corners. What can Alex Gillen do? That battling through turn 4, 5 and 6 between Tiamat Marduk and Nogueira, that handed the race win to El Rey Guri. If those two just kept it under control, followed each other, they would have finished first and second, but they were too busy fighting one another, and that handed the race win to El Rey Guri. But a fantastic performance. The race felt a little bit more dull in the midsection, but boy, was it worth it for that finale, for that ending. Congratulations, El Rey Guri. You are a winner here at the Austrian Grand Prix, and he will take his step on the top step of the podium. Will spray the champagne, and his championship charge is back on after the problems that he had at the Spanish Grand Prix. El Rey Guri back on fine form. Tiamat Marduk, though, closely hunting him down in this championship. 1 tenth separating those two. And Nogueira, after getting his first podium last time out in Spain, has seemed to got under control of those little mistakes that he's had over recent seasons. And it's back-to-back podiums for the Mercedes driver. Congratulations to those two. The standing order then, as they come across the line, let's run you through it. It's El Rey Guri who takes victory with Tiamat Marduk second, and El Rey Guri Nogueira who is in third. Then it's Unstopped Rob in the other Mercedes MP4. GB68 finishes in fifth. Disappointment for Tom going on to softs a little bit too late. Finishes in sixth position with Perrier seventh. Kalon in eighth. Alex Gillen ninth, and rounding out the top 10 is Zafso. Then it's Infratic in 11th. That guy Vince 12th. Punju in 13th. F1 Scott 14th. And Tom 97 gets the final point in the race with Adam Sanderson 16th, but takes away fastest lap point from the others. Big Good 17th, Patterson 18th, Matty D 19th, and M Skyzy in 20th position. Those guys at the back there DNF'd. It was only Adam Sanderson who was our final race finisher. Wow. What a race. What a race that was. Incredible stuff, and we were definitely treated right at the end there.
Oh man, if people could see my facial reactions on that final lap, that was incredible. Tiamat Marduk a single 10th off of victory here in Austria, and it would have pumped him up well and truly, may even P1 in that championship, but no. The one man that would have stood in his way, because even though Alex Gillen scored valuable points in the sprint race, it was only P8 in the final standings in the feature race. Tiamat Marduk finishing in P2 would have been valuable, absolutely imperative for his championship fight. And I can only assume he's gone up to P2 now, but the fight was between Alex Gillen and El Rey Guri, and now it's between Tiamat Marduk and El Rey Guri. El Rey Guri still holds on to that P1 and has actually strengthened his lead even more by picking up the win. It was nearly 26 points. Adam Sanderson just sneaking it at the very end. We saw Alex Gillen have a go. Couldn't get it done. Wow, what a race. And the rain. For so long, we struggled to see any action. The racing started to die out. And in the nick of time, in the final 3, 4, 5 laps of action, we saw the drying of the circuit. The sun came out. It rayed a beam of sunshine. And what a final lap. It was nearly Tiamat Marduk, but no, El Rey Guri with the pace on his side. A simply incredible race that will be a highlight for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I think brilliant race there from El Rey Guri. Performance was just top standard throughout the whole entirety. You know, to get himself at the front in the early stages, battle back and forth with Tiamat Marduk and GB68, and then, of course, in the wet period, that's where he just drove away from the rest of them. That nobody could touch El Rey Guri in those conditions. And then he took the gamble, and we were questioning, like, you know, is this the right call? But because he built that gap, it gave him the luxury to say, do you know what? I can step away here, take the soft tyres, and cut back through the field and still gained 3 seconds, but it was very minimal. He was lucky in the end there that Tiamat Marduk and Nogueira were fighting right at the end. And I think let's bring in our man on the podium. Not quite the race winner to start off with. We can bring in second position, Tiamat Marduk, and have a little chat. Tiamat Marduk, welcome
Legends.
in. 1/10 away from that race win. I assume you're gutted not to take it by such a small margin.
Yeah.
Was the battle with Nogueira what cost you there, right at the end?
Yeah, we needed to kind of work in unison, but like in Nogueira's position, every day of the week, I'm fighting for that because we're both fighting for the win there. We went side by side into a high-speed corner, and we probably cost ourselves half a second in that corner alone. And then the win was still on, even up to the line. It was 2.9 seconds, and across the line, and the gap's a 10th. So I was absolutely devastated. We were 10 seconds behind El Rey prior to the last pit stop, so I can't be too upset. He deserved the win today.
Yeah, was there any moment in your mind that you thought maybe it was worth boxing? We saw that it wasn't in the end because of what happened to Tom dropping down the order, but was there any sort of question in those last few laps to be like, maybe do I go for softs? Do I stay out?
Lap 65, if it was like the rain had stopped, but it wasn't dry at that point. I think that was probably the cutoff point. And then it wasn't until about lap 67, maybe 68 that El Rey boxed. So yeah, in my mind, because of the position I was in, I think my Hail Mary was always staying out on inters and hoping that El Rey boxed. And he did. But bruh, you know what? I'll tell you this. I had a back end loss out of the last corner. And I think maybe without that, I think I might have won the race. But yeah, again, he deserved it, and I take nothing away from him.
Championship still on, though. Great points gained. I think you've overtaken Alex Gillen in the championship. Alex, as you love to say, in the mud today, finishing down in P9 and getting removed from the lobby halfway through, which definitely cost him. But P2, a few points lost. Of course, 5 points lost to El Rey Guri in the race there. But, potential over this long season to get him back.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's a long season, 13 races. It's going to be a real test of El Rey's consistency. I like to think I can turn up to every race and be fighting for the podium every race. El Rey's definitely a changed man this year. He's very quick, but that race-to-race consistency, if he's going to win the championship, then he has to be up there every race. So I think it's gonna go right down to the last race. It's going to be great.
It certainly will. If it goes down to the last race like it did to the last lap today, then I think we're all in for an absolute treat in this championship. Thank you very much, Ben. Congratulations on the podium today, and we will see you next week, and maybe even see you in the commentary box once again if you can get back on the podium.
Thanks, guys. See you then.
Cheers, Ben.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right, let's bring in then El Rey Guri, and I'll let you have a conversation with our race winner as we drag him in and have a conversation. Here he is.
El Rey Guri, congratulations on a fantastic victory and a very close victory for that. Tell me through your final couple of laps. You came into the pits, you bought the stop compound tires. It was dry conditions. When you did come out, you seemed to have the pace right off the go, even with cold tires off the beginning. Just walk me through your final couple of laps there. I mean, that would have been pressurizing to really try and find the time. I mean, we had a 3-second time penalty, something that couldn't be removed. So how's that pace to get past the drive and still win by 10th of a second? I mean, how are you feeling about that one?
I feel spectacular. I mean, we did a great job today, especially with the intermediate compound. And yeah, we beat 3 laps after to go, and well, we tried our best and finally managed to win.
Yep.
And hopefully we were a bit bored at the front, so we tried to get also the fastest lap.
Yes.
And yeah, really happy with my performance today and the consistency, because I didn't make any mistake during the race, especially in difficult conditions such as the rain. And I think I am the most consistent guy in the series today. So we are even further in the championship. So really happy
You are-
to that. I am about that.
Speaking about the championship, you are now on, from what I can calculate, if I'm correct, you're on 108 points, with Ben taking that spot away from Mr. Alex Gillen with 90 points to his name. So there is a little bit of a gap in between. I believe it's 18 separating both of you. How are you going to continue your pace, and how are you going to continue doing what you're doing and performing at the level you are and scoring the points and the wins that you have been doing throughout this entire season?
My idea has been the same since the beginning, to be calm during the race. I tried during this sprint race, and I don't know why my teammate fought a lot. I don't get it, to be honest. But I am trying to avoid issues with others, because in previous seasons, mainly I had problems in terms of fights, because the DRS in F1 23 was huge compared to this F1 24, which is giving me an advantage compared to others. So in F1 24 you just need to be fast, and I am taking that approach, like be patient to overtake in the key moments and then pull out, and at the moment it's working perfectly, so I'll continue to do that.
Absolutely. Obviously, we had mixed conditions today. It started off nice and dry, and everyone started on the dry tires, slick compound tires, and then it started to rain, and everyone went on the inters, and a few went on the wets. But more about setups here. A lot of drivers seem to struggle as it became more about, wet conditions, and it started to change, and it's clear to see that their focus was around dry setups. But it seemed that even in wet conditions or dry conditions, you seemed to stay competitive and you were still able to pull out a gap.
Yeah, I'm great on wet this year. Like as you seen in Spain also, I came from 15 to 3rd. So to be honest, hopefully the next races, I hope it's going to rain, because I will win for sure. My setup was as the same as others, pure dry conditions, and it was really difficult. So I think my main skill is during difficult traction events mainly. I'm taking a lot of time from there compared to others. So yeah, hopefully we will see more rain, because I can capitalize on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's have a quick think about the calendar. Obviously, here in Formula 1, it's slightly different to F2. However, it still stays the same. We're going to get a break week. So obviously that gives you an opportunity to practice and maybe even have some time off if that's something you were considering. But then we come back for round 6, obviously after your great victory here in Austria, for a fan vote Grand Prix. So kind of talk me through how you would prepare for something like that. Is it more just preparing for all the different circuits that may be available and just getting yourself in a mindset where, no matter what circuit is chosen, you are able to stay competitive no matter what is chosen? Yeah.
Well, what I'm doing is training with a friend, Eme, who also has raced recently in the previous Grand Prix. We train a day before. And for the, let's say, Mystery Grand Prix or Fan Vote Grand Prix, this time I am going to practice on Silverstone, because the vast majority of the community in this series is from UK. So I guess maybe it's a great circuit to race. And also I think it's a really great layout. So it has fast speed corners, also some slow corners in the last sector, and it's a circuit which I am not as good as other. So maybe I will practice there on Silverstone, and also Thunboard, which is really tricky with a few complicated sections with gravel and so on. So, well, I wanted to please to give thanks to my community, and also to Eme. Like I said, he is helping me a lot training. and my community is motivating me a lot. So thank you to all of them.
I guess just a final question on my part, and then Hayden, if there's anything you'd like to add on your side, then please do. Just when it came to that final lap, when it came to you overtaking the drivers and being so close in between Ben and yourself by a single tenth of a second, was there any concern at any point? Was there any stress on your mind that maybe you weren't going to win the race?
A lot of stress. It was really tough. In the first place, I thought we have lost the victory an idiot. So, but well, like you have seen, we win by a tenth, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks to the final DRS with Alex Guillon, which was going to be lapped, which is a good thing. Nearly lapping the second in the championship. But yes, I was really rushing, let's say. My last 2 laps probably were the worst of the whole race because I was maybe overdriving in a way. And also I had 2 off tracks, 1 more, and I would have get a 6-second penalty in total. So maximum pressure for me, but we had luck, to be honest.
Yeah.
I only have one question
either
for
way,
you, and that is, do you now miss me as a teammate then? If GB's fighting you in those sprint race, I would never fight you. I knew that you were the faster driver. So do you miss me?
I get on well with all my teammates.
Whoa!
It was great. It was great being with you. I miss you, obviously, but I also think GB is a great teammate, and we will speak after the race with the team and try to keep things calm. I did understand, especially the last overtake without the front left end plate, which cost me a lot of time in the sprint, but nevertheless, he's doing a great job, and we are first on the championship, so really happy with GB performance also.
You get 2 different things with your teammates. If you have me, I don't fight you, but I don't score points. If you get GB, he does fight you, but he does score points at least. So it's which one do you want? But congratulations on your race win. And
Hayden, are you trying to force your way into being a teammate again?
You can support me from the commentator cabin.
Exactly. I'm flying the flag. I'm flying the El Rey Aston Martin flag.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Congratulations today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. No, not next week, because we're at Silverstone, so it's a break week. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time for maybe another victory.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
And there we go.
No more interviews. On that note, well, yes, I mean, you bring up the point perfectly, and I think we also brought up the point. It's a break week, ladies and gentlemen. No more racing for at least 2 weeks, and then we shall be back. But do not count it out, because even though we have a break week both in F2 and F1, it's not for the entirety of Creator Series. In this break week, we will still have WRC rolling on the Monday, so make sure to tune in and give your support to the commentators that will be there, and also to all the drivers putting in 100% of their time and effort to give you both content, entertainment, and competitive driving all at the very same time. But Hayden, I got a question for you. My good sir, who would you say is driver of the day?
Driver of the day. So we had 2 races over the course of the weekend, so I have to take that into consideration. The sprint race, 2. There's a lot of great people that deserve a shout out. I think GB68, fantastic lap to put at pole position. But who's been the most consistent over the weekend? And I always feel like it's a cop-out. But I feel like it's got to be El Rey Guri, with the reverse championship of the sprint, came back, finished in 4th. And then in the race was perfect. Okay, the qualifying didn't go, perfect for him, didn't get the pole position. But the race was perfect, was right up at the front, was fighting for the lead very early on. And then the wet weather just drove away from everybody else, enough to take a pit stop, drive back through, and just scrape the race win. So for me, as much as it always sounds like a cop-out going for the race winner, and they've already got the race win, don't give them driver of the day as well. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give driver of the day also to El Guri because I think he's had a fantastic performance today.
You've done a me here. I did it in F2 yesterday. Oh, man. But sometimes in certain situations, a race winner has just had such a fantastic performance. They've been able to show consistency and pace and been able to make overtake after overtake, no matter the situation. If it's raining, if it's dry, if there's back markers, if, someone's being aggressive, they always find a way to just, not only be not only to keep that competitiveness, but also to just not get complacent and just be focused the entire time throughout the entirety of the race. And I agree with you on that side. I think the only other person you could go for is Tiamat Marduk because of the constant fighting and the hassle he kind of gave, El Guri at different points. And that obviously final lap, that 1/10 deficit. And as Ben put it, if that rear didn't kick out on the final lap, maybe there was an opportunity of him winning. I remember that timing sheet. We were looking in between El Guri and Tiamat Marduk. At that point, El Guri had already crossed the line, so it was really just up to Ben to cross that line and see if he would be under that 3-second margin. So it really did come down to the wire. But no, I agree with the driver of the day, and I think that's the official decision. Obviously, everyone in the Twitch chat also, you choose who you may believe should be driver of the day. But at least from us in the commentary box, from me and Hayden, driver of the day goes to El Guri. Either way, Hayden, is there anything else we really need to do, or is it time to say tut-tut and goodbye?
I think we have done a fantastic job on the commentary today, and I think we are allowed now to put our feet up and relax. And
actually, you know what? One final thing, because we have to sneak it in somehow. Where can we find you on social media, Hayden?
Where can you find me? Hayden Gullis across anything and everything. That's as simple as it is. You'll find me streaming on there and YouTube, Twitch, all of those things. Just search Hayden Gullis. What about yourself?
Well, listen, for everyone in here, I promise I will change it to Jamie Perry at some point soon. Complicated, so note this down. All capitals, JP_M13. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram. That's it. But you can find me there. I upload all my commentary clips and do certain things here and there and try and be as consistent as possible. It will change to Jamie Perry soon, I do promise. But is all capitals JP_M13. Go support Hayden Gillis because he's an absolute legend. Go support me because
you are an absolute legend.
Anyway, listen, I don't want to be all egotistical with it, but from me and from Hayden Gillis and here in the virtual commentary box, it is good night, it is goodbye. Please have a fantastic evening. Stay safe. Cheers from Australia.